OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
It's Friday morning and welcome along to OTB AM, an absolutely packed show for you again this morning. Owen Sheehan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian.
It's an unusual morning for you, Owen, in that the All-Stars have been announced in the last few minutes, confirmed in the last few minutes, and I mean, not all that surprisingly, there's no Kerry players amongst them. Dublin, unbelievably dominant. Cavan, reading on OTBSports.com this morning, having won 2 in the previous 50 years, are the real story of this, I suppose, in so many ways, with 3 players on the 15. I'll give the team out in full here, and then we'll get your reaction to it on. So it's the 2020 PwC GAA All-Stars football team, just announced, as I said, in the last few minutes. And in goal, Raymond Galligan for Cavan. The defenders, Oisin Mullen from Mayo, Pádraig Faulkner from Cavan. You have Dubs, Mick Fitzsimons, James McCarthy, John Small, and Owen Merchant. Brian Fenton, as he's become a mainstay in that midfield. This time, Thomas Galligan alongside him there, and up front for the Dubs, Niall Scully, who played such an important role in the final, obviously. Kilkenny likewise, Conor Callahan and Dean Rock, as well as Cillian O'Connor from Mayo, one of only 2, I think, Mayo players in it, and Conor Sweeney as well from Tipperary, who becomes, I think, the 3rd player ever from Tip to win it. So Dublin dominant, and a great day for Cavan.
A great day for Cavan, as you said there, 2 in the past 50. The Galligans have got as many as that now in 1 year, and they fully deserve it. The controversy is going to be regarding Stephen Cluxton missing out on an All-Star again. He's got plenty of them, but maybe his career will end without having the number of All-Stars that his greatness possibly deserves. But the thing is, when it comes to these year-by-year selections, he hasn't been that unfortunate to miss out on any of these occasions. Raymond Galligan deserves this. He deserves to be the goalkeeper. He's the reason why Cavan managed the 2nd game in the All-Ireland, in the Ulster Championship this year, and never mind actually get to an All-Ireland semi-final. He got his county out of jail on that occasion, and he was brilliant throughout. Thomas Gallagher in midfield then was the emerging star of 2020. Absolutely sensational for a man who didn't even start that first game against Monaghan to come in and make the impact he did. It's a great story, and it is rare that we have great stories in GAA at the moment. And unfortunately, the Tip and the Cavan stories last year feel like an anomaly, but they were brilliant moments all the same. And one of the great weekends of recent Gaelic football was that weekend when Donegal and Cork got beaten by Cavan and Tip. Now, Tip have only got 1. Conor Sweeney there in the full forward line is their only All-Star this year. You might have thought that they could have deserved an extra one. Maybe the manner in which they got hammered by Mayo in the All-Ireland semi-final did one of their backs or 2 of them out of an All-Star this year. And then looking through it, the other person who I might think could be a little bit aggrieved this morning is Paddy Durkin. Obviously had a sensational season for Mayo, I thought. And Mayo have only got 1 of the All-Stars in the backs and then 1 of the All-Stars in the forwards.
And the Mayo thing is interesting, and I think that, like, because from everything we believe the All-Ireland final is so heavily weighted from sort of all the other games that happen over the course of a year, that, you know, a big performance there can help. He came off, I think, did he at half-time in the All-Ireland final? Is that maybe that's a contributing factor to it? And it was funny because it was one of the things that leaped out for me from it, like, outside of the fact that actually 9 players from Dublin is not... wouldn't have been a ridiculous stretch right at the start of the year, but the representation from Cavan and Tipperary, definitely you would have got decent odds on that. But yeah, from Mayo's point of view, you think 2 is not a lot given the fact that they got where they got and that they gave Dublin something of a rattle for, what was it, 55, 60 minutes in the end, something like that. But then actually when you look across it, like, you make a case for Paddy Durkin. I suppose there was a bit more hope from Tommy Conroy. It's hard to look across the Mayo team and make a huge case really for anybody else.
But it's just because the Dubs were so good, and I think 9 isn't an overstretch from their perspective at all, especially how dominant they were in every single game. And with no backdoor this year, there was less of a shop window for players to play themselves into contention. And the main reason why it's taken so long for 9 All-Stars to happen is because the qualifiers came in, and because there were so many... Like, there was an embarrassment of riches at the disposal of the selectors every single year, and there was just less of that last year because it was a shortened championship. So, no, you can't look at any of the Dublin winners and say to yourself, they don't deserve their All-Star. They're all fully deserving of their All-Star. They've all had brilliant seasons, and it is almost the Dubs that didn't get an All-Star that probably can feel most aggrieved at that point. Like I make the case for Paddy Durcan, and yet who are you dropping from James McCarthy, John Small, and Owen Merchant? Like he's not getting in. You can't push James McCarthy to midfield for the purposes of this team because Fenton and Thomas Gallagher were too good throughout the season. So McCarthy has to be a halfback, and Small and Merchant deserve to be there as well. So that's the way it is. Like it's always a keenly contested thing, and Mayo usually go down as a team who perhaps overachieve in the All-Stars. That's what a lot of Dublin fans might tell you. This year, it feels like they've underachieved when it comes to the All-Stars.
Yeah, even when you start to look on at the Dublin players in some regards that have missed out on the team, like Johnny Cooper probably can't have too many complaints given obviously how his year went at the end. I think Davy Byrne misses out as well. You have McDade, Bugler misses out, Paddy Small as well. Like, I mean, they're few and far between, as you said. There might be a case for a couple of those, but overall, it seems fair enough. A scant enough reward for Tipperary. I mean, look at in the grand scheme of things, there's always going to be a case for trying to get more players in there. But given the year they had, and caused every bit as much of a stir as Cavan, they might have the right to feel a little bit disappointed.
A little bit, definitely. Like I think Sweeney was a banker, and then I think he just gets crowded out by the rest of the forwards. Like Michael Quinlivan might have been the next man up when it came to a forward this year, but he wasn't getting in ahead of Kilkenny or Con or Cillian O'Connor, and to a lesser extent, not getting in ahead of Dean Rock or Niall Scully. Like the thing is, this year you've had Kilkenny, Con O'Callaghan, and Cillian O'Connor putting in, like between the three of them, just an outrageous campaign. And it's rare that you would have three absolute bankers in the forward. So there was really only three up for grabs, and Sweeney was going to get it after the season he had, and it was going to be hard to knock Scully or Rock off. The thing with a lot of this, Adrian, is it's actually kind of hard to remember who played really, really well. When it comes down to the nitty-gritty of, was Michael Quinlivan deserving ahead of Niall Scully? Maybe not Michael Quinlivan, but like any of the Mayo players. It's hard to actually just remember what was the specifics of how the season went. Like I'm not sure, does the gap between the All-Ireland final and the All-Stars list actually just feel a little bit longer this year, or what's going on? But it definitely feels that it's hard to be sure, have they got this thing exactly right? But definitely when you think about 2020, like you can definitely remember those who absolutely shot the lights out. It's going to be interesting then when you think about who's going to be Footballer of the Year. Like for me, it's Ciarán Kilkenny, and he's possibly the front runner. And from my perspective, just given the season he had, but it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Like Oisín Mullen, the only one from the Young Footballer of the Year category to get an All-Star here, so you would imagine he might be front runner to actually pick up his All-Star for Young Footballer of the Year.
And he had a brilliant final as well, was the thing. Like he was pulling Mayo through at times where, in a way that some of the other more experienced players weren't. So I mean, I don't want to be using terms like shoe-in, but he's certainly on the scale somewhere, isn't he, in relation to that. And there was a couple of things that struck me on. First of all, I took your previous comment there about, listen, who can really remember what happened in 2020 to be a sop to the fact that there are no Kerry names on this thing, and I'm sure there's a lot of people down your way this morning just thinking, All-Stars, was that, God, 2020, sure. I mean, are we still talking about that? That seems like ages ago. And the other thing is that it also strikes me that out of the list here, this is the first blow in the effort to soften Dublin up for 2021. Let's just give them almost all the All-Stars. So there isn't any of this Brian Cody stuff during the course of the year where it's like, well, we got shafted in those damn All-Stars. They shafted us. No, it's like 1981 Dubs, 1981 Kerry level of, is that right, of dominance here. So the softening up has begun.
Yeah, it is interesting actually to compare it to 1981, that it required consecutive All-Irelands for this domination of an All-Star team to actually occur. Now, I know the Dubs actually got this number in 1977, I think, so maybe this analysis isn't fair, but maybe the All-Star selection, there is a little bit of credit given for past glories as well. Like there's a lot of repeat winners in here, and don't get me wrong, they all had phenomenal 2020s and they're all fully deserving of it in that regard. But the names just roll off the tongue at this point. Like when you look at the Dublin winners, certainly Kilkenny, O'Callaghan and Dean Rock in the forward line, like when they play well, everybody knows about it. It's easy almost to get the All-Stars out, and that was certainly the case with Kerry in 1981. I'm sure if it's a 50-50 call, the Kerry player would have got it back in 81 as well, because they've won 4 All-Irelands in a row. And that utter domination, I'm sure that just seeps into how you think about the All-Star team. I'm sure it seeps into how every opposition unit comes up against Dublin as well, thinking and knowing how dominant they've been over the last couple of years, that it just penetrates every little aspect of GAA society now, how good this team is and how dominant this team currently is. As with regards to the Kerry team thing this year, the only confusion down in Kerry is how on earth David Clifford actually managed to get a nomination, and why on earth they were even given one nomination this year. So they've been patronised, if anything, by being given that one nomination, and certainly didn't deserve to be within an arse's roar of this team.
We've obviously had the announcement last night that we're locking down for a little bit longer, but you do have to feel like a large dollop. Look, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal, but you have to feel a large dollop of sympathy for all the players who've won All-Stars last year and this year, and like that great reward going on the lash to wherever it might be, New York or Dubai or whatever you're having yourself. Maybe they just end up sending 10 teams away on one of these trips next. They could do, because they tend to bring the previous years as well, don't they? So maybe they could just bring 2 or 3 teams away and off they go.
Yeah, that's it actually, because it's football one year, then they're hurling the next year, so they do bring 2 teams with them. So they might have to do both codes next year in a sort of 60-man extravaganza to wherever they go. Also as well, like the night and in the convention centre and it being live on TV and all that sort of stuff. Like the occasion is certainly gone from. I presume that there is still some sort of remote ceremony that's going to take place, but it's not the same. Like especially for the Cavan lads here, like the fact that there was no backdoor last year, the fact that they kind of rolled with the punches that 2020 brought, allowed them to have just a phenomenal season. And maybe the opportunities for a team like that to actually grab 2 All-Stars might be diminished this year. I could be eating humble pie, but it might be diminished, and it'd be a shame if they didn't get to properly celebrate this, because this is a big morning for Cavan getting 2 All-Stars.
For everybody watching this morning, just to clarify Owen's thoughts there, this is the first time in 2021. Mark it down. First time in 2021 that Owen has started into the Yearisms already. 2020, sure, it didn't even really matter. Who can even remember that? Was it Dublin that won it? Yeah, look at eaten bread, soon forgotten, and on we go, which is exactly what we're going to do. We might come back to that a little bit later in the show, but it is coming up at 7:45 on this Friday morning. Delighted to have you along with us. You're watching OTB AM. We're live in association with Gillette. Good mornings start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We've plenty coming up over the course of the day, and I'm delighted to say that Phil Egan is standing by. Good morning, Phil.
Morning, lads. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Where do you want to jump in on last night's football? Arsenal are brutal, and Manchester United are back. Is that what we're talking about here?
I honestly, watching the United game last night, I would like to apply for a job as Real Sociedad's analyst, because have they never watched Manchester United play a game before? Honestly, what do United thrive on? A team that they play against with a high line, no pressure on the ball, and it was 4-0. United players must have been absolutely laughing themselves to sleep last night, thinking, how easy was that? Real Sociedad are a decent team, and United absolutely ripped them to shreds. And as I said, it was 4-0. It could have been double that. Rashford missed a few chances. Obviously, he scored as well. But yeah, I do wonder sometimes, do teams actually, how much study they do on opposition, because
it made no sense at all. Like Sociedad were told watertight defensive team, and they've been cut open left, right, and centre. But it's the prowess of United, Phil. That's how we're looking at it.
No, look, United, that is their strength. They're so devastating on the counter attack because they have such pace. So if you play a high line and you show them all that space in behind, they now have a player like Bruno Fernandes that can pick a pass. That, although it was Fred last night that put in a pass for Rashford's goal. But yeah, if you give them that space, they're just going to thrive off that. And luckily for Newcastle fans, they've Steve Bruce, who will afford United no such luxuries this weekend. They will do the complete opposite, where they will just sit on the edge of the 18-yard box and basically say to United, can you break us down? But it was an important win, because Solskjaer mentioned it after the game that they have been a little bit patchy in the last few weeks, and he kind of felt that they had their zip back last night. And he was asked, because the tie is done, he was asked, are you going to rest a load of players next week? And he said, maybe I won't, because this is just how you build a bit of momentum, and players don't want to be left out when you absolutely blitz a team. Obviously, you'd expect them to beat Newcastle on Sunday and then another win next week, and then they go into the end of the Premier League campaign with a bit of momentum again. And look, we know they're not going to win the league, but if they can finish strongly and finish second and finish the season by winning one of the cup competitions, that would be a decent enough bit of work for Solskjaer.
I must look at the over-under on for Sunday, but you must be extraordinarily fearful about what's going to happen to your beloved Arsenal.
Yeah. You're always, you'll have to be going up against Manchester City. Like, I'm not sure if Arsenal are still the shambolic club that some might actually paint them out to be. I do think that the Europa League is going to be interesting. I think they will win the second leg, and they clearly should have won that game last night. That Aubameyang miss after 18 minutes was absolutely horrific. But it's interesting, and this kind of applies to Manchester United last night as well, how the Europa League and the teams that regularly appear in the Europa League are akin to an adolescent male who starts to get a little bit of an air about himself, who starts to feel a little bit of confidence about himself, and sort of feels that they are better than they are. And this is why it is the sort of competition that will suit Manchester United down to the ground, where they come up against a team like Real Sociedad, who are like, it doesn't matter what Manchester United have done in the Premier League. We are the great Sociedad. We've got David Silva. We are absolutely capable of going toe-to-toe with this team and beating them, before actually realising that, no, that is not going to happen. And you probably should have been a little bit more street smart, and you probably should have been a little bit more humble in actually approaching this game, and all of a sudden the tie is over. I think United are going to win the Europa League, and I think that the style of play that they're going to come up against round after round is going to suit them down to the ground, because a lot of teams in this competition think they're a lot better than they are, and maybe Arsenal are one of them as well.
It's a great analogy, Phil. Will you take that on? Because, like, looking at Arsenal last night, should have gone out to win that, to do everything they could to win that game, to salvage something from their season. And I mean, maybe Owen doesn't agree with it from what he was saying there, but they weren't pretty.
No, but Aubameyang's miss is an absolute sitter, and then obviously they go 1-0 up if he puts that away. But no, I would still fancy Arsenal to get through. They do have an away goal, so you know the advantage is there. And looking ahead to the game at the weekend, the Arsenal City game, it's that one where you would imagine it's going to be a really comfortable afternoon for City without absolutely hammering Arsenal. It could be, you know, a 2-0, but just a football lesson. And unless Arteta can pull something out of the bag like they did in the Cup last season, where they surprised a few, but that was a different City. City are 17 wins in a row in all competitions, so they're going to turn up and win. Obviously, De Bruyne came off the bench against Everton the other night. He's back. So, yeah, City are going to win that one comfortably. Don't think it'll be an absolute hammering, but Arsenal, in terms of the Europa League, they went out to Olympiacos last season, a tie that they should have won. So there is a pattern developing where they should be winning these ties and they're not getting the job done. I was actually working on Europa League football last night. The game of the night, Royal Antwerp and Rangers. Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. Two penalties.
Two penalties for Rangers, a penalty for Antwerp, and 4-3, a sending off. Just like that is what you call a 7-goal thriller, because obviously to win a thriller with 7 goals, you have to win by 1 goal. Like you can't get a 5-2 thriller. It doesn't exist. But yeah, it's been some season for Rangers when you think that obviously they're unbeaten in the league. They've only lost 1 game this season. That was against St Mirren. That was in the Cup. And they went through their group without losing a game. And there was times last night where you thought this isn't going to work out for them. But they were the better team. They did pick up a couple of injuries there, which Steven Gerrard will be worried about. Tavernier is right back, who has been prolific from right back, picked up an injury, and Roof went off as well. But I was disappointed with Leicester. Leicester started with a strong team, started well, but a 0-0 draw with Prague in Prague. So we've kind of seen in these knockout games that if you don't get an away goal, it can come back to bite you in the backside. But Vardy started, but he took Vardy off after an hour. So maybe he had an eye on that Villa game. Plus Vardy's just back from that little procedure that he had done as well.
Tottenham, Phil, obviously West Ham on Sunday, so Jose will be delighted he's got a great break before that game. Wolfsburger last night, they blitzed them. I felt it was like a reminder of maybe what this. I know, look, Gareth Bale plays and he scores a brilliant goal, like in a way that you're looking at him, well set up by Matt Doherty as well. Bale pointed him right into the direction and away he went. Nice little ball, but Bale, like a real bit of sharpness about him that belies the fact that he's played so little football. He sets up another one as well. But looking at the team last night, it almost is like an indicator of this is how we should be looking at Tottenham every week, and we just don't see it.
No, we know the problem with Tottenham is they're just not good enough at the back. That goes against everything that Jose Mourinho wants, because the foundations for success for Mourinho are a solid back four. And he's even played a back five this season, which just shows you that he really doesn't trust his defence, because Mourinho's always been back four, well, most of the time. And I suppose one bonus was they could leave out Harry Kane last night, get the job done, and Harry Kane will come back in for the West Ham game. But yeah, they're just not good enough where they're going to go ahead in games and they can't see them out. Whereas Mourinho in his pomp, once he scored and they went 1-0 up, that was it. Game was done and dusted. If they wanted to get a second goal, maybe they could, but they weren't going to lose the game or drop points. Whereas now with Spurs, you just don't trust them with a lead. And, you know, they're conceding more goals than you'd ever associate with Mourinho teams, but they're still, like, you look at the team though, there's still quality in there. And what was driving them towards the top of the table earlier in the season, it was that Kane and Son partnership. The hope was that Gareth Bale could be part of that. He hasn't been, but I don't think that he has a place in their strongest starting 11. My feeling was when they signed Bale was you're going to see some great moments from Bale this season, but not enough, because he just hasn't played enough football over the last 2 years. Yeah,
we'll watch with interest. And we haven't even mentioned, of course, the Merseyside derby, that the battle for the top six, Phil, that everyone's looking forward to.
Do you know what? It wasn't lost to me when I heard the Europa League music last night. I thought this could be a regular for Liverpool next season.
Phil, good man. Thanks a million. Enjoy that, and enjoy the football over the weekend as well. Phil Egan there. As always, on a Friday morning, looking ahead to the weekend. 7:52 on this Friday. Do keep your comments coming into us on any of the topics that we're discussing this morning, or anything you're having yourself. We have loads coming your way between now and 10 o'clock this morning. We're going to talk... I'm going to let you know what's happening across the back pages in just a couple of moments' time. We're going to debate about the correct route forward for Andy Farrell and this Irish team in relation particularly to the number 10 shirt. Maybe a couple of other positions as well over the course of the next few weeks, particularly with Italy in mind, obviously the weekend after this. Andy Mitten will reflect on last night's game for Manchester United and look ahead to the weekend as well. Frank Greaney, our courts correspondent, on an interesting development at the courts this week that I'm sure most of our viewers this morning have been following, and we'll get Frank's view on that a little bit later. Cora Staunton is going to join us live on the line from Australia, where it's been a bit of a mixed season to start to the AFLW season for Cora. We'll get her thoughts live on the line a little bit later on, so if you have any questions for her, we'll put them to her. Cold Cuts as well, we'll be here a little bit later on, and it's all about apologies this week. That's the little bit of an insight we can give you there. That's the theme of the week. Crappy quiz. And then Louise Quinn, who was in conversation with Nathan on Off the Ball last night. So that's all coming your way between now and 10 a.m. this morning. So stay tuned for all of that. Just to let you know what's happening on OTBSports.com this morning, the news that we brought you in the last few minutes there in relation to the All-Stars is actually the lead story now in the last couple of minutes on the website now, All-Stars for Dublin. The Cavan Award as well, with 3 nominations there, Tipperary feature and a couple from AO as well. So you can get the full details there up on the website. That picture of Gareth Bale there making the W sign, and then I think it was closely followed by an M sign as well, whatever all that means. But Bale in contention for the Premier League now after a goal there on his Europa League start. Solskjaer says United back to themselves, and plenty more up there as well. So you can check that out on OTBSports.com. And then across some of the back pages, give you a small flavour here. The Irish Times this morning, concussion at the forefront of everyone's mind here, says Leo Cullen, the Leinster coach. Farrell wary of blooding young players against Italy, as a team we'll come back to in just a couple of moments' time. In the news as well, Lynn Cantwell's move to South Africa. Gareth Bale and Son feature on the front page of the Telegraph sports section this morning, as well as a story about Wilfried Zaha to stop taking a knee and will not wear the Black Lives Matter logo on his shirt. Palace striker breaks ranks to disown degrading, as he words it, protest. I'm not here to tick boxes. I just think we should stand tall. The words of Wilfred Zaha in conversation with Tom Morgan there inside. Same story in the Times for you this morning, the London Times that is. Cloud 9, says the Irish Daily Mail. That's a reflection of Dublin's record-tying All-Star haul, and also jubilant Bruno on the back page there as well. Brute force, says the Mirror this morning in relation to Bruno Fernandes. A couple of goals last night as Manchester United beat Real Sociedad 4-0, and also news on the Dubs inside. Same story in the Star, and I also see a line there from Paul Lennon that Robbie Brady is out until March, hauled off the other night, and it seems like he's picked up an Achilles injury now during the week, and will be out for Ireland's upcoming games. We should stand tall, Wilfred Zaha there in the Guardian. The Herald County Chiefs don't want dub funds cut. No appetite to defund Sky Blues with rivals totally against splitting the championships in two. That's Conor McKeown in the Herald. And there's the same story in the Irish Independent this morning, as well as Rogers signs up as full-time Irish scout with the Mendes Group. This is the former Dundalk goalkeeper Gary Rogers, hired as a full-time Irish scout by the Jorge Mendes agency. They're the words of Dan McDonald. You can check all that out in more detail inside there. So they are the newspapers for you this morning. The Examiners, I should mention, some good stuff inside from Ronan O'Gara. Murray and Sexton's Ireland futures are separate debates, he says, and there's plenty more as well inside in relation to the rugby, and we might continue on that theme on, I think, in relation to Irish rugby and the selection process that we've had over the last few weeks, and yeah, exactly, I suppose, where all this is headed over the next while, because it's a grimmish picture, I think, for Irish rugby fans at the minute. We're not making the progress we want in the pitch, and we're not seeing maybe the selections that many fans would like to see. Now, hindsight is a great thing, but like Andy Farrell and his selection of Billy Burns at 10 against France, we spoke about it on this show this day last week with Alan Quinlan, and we asked him about, you know, because it was widely speculated at that time that Burns would feature. Like, was this the right thing to do? Either a very brave move from Andy Farrell. You know, he's putting his cojones on the table and he's saying, this is my guy. When Sexton is out, I'm going for Billy Burns, and that's exactly, for whatever the rationale was, exactly what he did. And then, you know, you look at the stack of options that are there. You have your Ross Byrne, obviously, who comes in early in the game and does well. You have Jack Carty. You've, not to mind, obviously, the younger players then, the likes of Harry Byrne and Ben Healy. You lads can take a ticket, because my guy is Billy Burns. Like, it's France, it's the Six Nations, and he's very much backing him as his number two. Joey Carberry's return notwithstanding. But it did strike me as a pre-match, and I know it looks smarter now in hindsight, but pre-match, that it was an odd hill on which to pitch your flag. Like, I'm assuming that these are conversations that he's having with Mike Catt, and, you know, that they're all in now on somebody who has big question marks. And again, against France, when he comes off, we're a better side when he's not there. I like the argument for starting with somebody else other than Billy Burns, and particularly bringing in some of the younger players, I think could never have been stronger than it was at the minute, because like the argument that's always made about putting your best foot forward in all of these games and not taking any risks and going with a bit of experience over the younger players is obviously about needing to put bums on seats for the Six Nations and keep the coffers afloat. It's the Irish national team are the thing that keeps, we're told, the IRFU in business, but it's not a factor at the minute. It's not about keeping the public interested enough so that they're going to come to games. It's just not a factor this year. And I just think that the case for bringing in somebody, and I appreciate it looks smart ass now, or it looks hindsight at this stage, I think there was a really strong case to do it against France. I think putting in Billy Burns, he was saying, this is my guy. And now we read the quotes this morning of Farrell say, Farrell wary of blooding young players in Italy is the headline in the Irish Times. And I do find it, very deflating, to say the least, that like, here we are again, whatever but against France, we're up against Italy, and look at, we're all on the line now, because are we playing for a wooden spoon here? Probably. But he's talking about Harry Byrne in the papers today, is Andy Farrell, and he talks about him playing little rugby. He's saying that he's untested. Can't just guess that he's going to be okay, is one of the summations of one of his quotes. He's saying he's got a bad back. We've got to make sure they're ready, he says. But like, the same wasn't true when you look at somebody like James Ryan a couple of years ago, who in fact made his Ireland debut in 2017 before he ever played for Leinster. and it's not also as if Harry Byrne, and I'm focusing in on him, but I mean, I think that there was a strong case for Ross Byrne to start. I think there was a strong case for Jack Carty, but to focus in on Harry Byrne, I just think that like you got to give youth its flourish, and I thought that last week was the time, and I believe next week is definitely the time.
You make a strong case. Just a couple of things there. First of all, on the James Ryan thing and the Six Nations as a whole, James Ryan made his debut against the United States in 2017. Italy aren't good, but it's a hell of a lot more important than a game against the United States in a summer tour. The fact that there's going to be nobody paying into the stadiums is almost as significant this season in terms of actually getting over the line and winning the games and getting prize money that the IRFU need. So this is why Ireland need to win their last 3 games. It doesn't necessarily mean that you go out and you suddenly throw away the future if that's what Billy Burns represents. But I don't think that that's the way Andy Farrell is thinking. I think that if you bet big on your backup 10 in week 1, which he did by picking him over Ross Byrne as your backup out half, then you kind of need to go all in on him in the second week. Otherwise, you kind of alienate that player, and he's sort of gone forever. It's going to be hard to bring that player back into the fold and try and give back the trust to the player. At least now he can make a far more educated decision on Billy Burns. He has seen him as a starter, and he's seen him as a sub, and he's seen all the strengths that he can bring, and he's seen more of the weaknesses that he can bring to the table. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Billy Burns thing is sort of done, or at least he's kind of one step down on the pecking order, and Ross Byrne at least has leapfrogged him. What I don't understand is why someone like Jack Carty isn't in there. And in fairness, this isn't something that I was thinking about too much until we were chatting to Brian O'Driscoll this week, and he made the case for him. And it makes perfect sense in that he is an experienced out half who is playing really good rugby this season, who has a bit more spark about him than either Byrne or Burns currently does. And I think that is the happy medium between the not ideal situation that we've seen in the first 2 weeks and the Harry Byrne situation. Because really, Adrian, you can't honestly make the case that the Harry Byrne situation is ideal at the moment. As much as we all want to see him wear the green of Ireland and get onto a senior pitch, Andy Farrell has a point. Like we can't allow the excitement of youth to distract from the fact that Andy Farrell has a point when he says he has played about 95 minutes or 98 minutes in 10 weeks. 80 of those were a couple of weeks ago against the Scarlets. He's a guy that's been on the radar some time for us, but he's been unbelievably stop-start and he's had a bad back. Like, those are all factors to not give a player his first full Ireland cap. It might actually be enough to not give a guy a first full Ireland cap in a game against the United States. It is definitely a reason not to do it in a game against Italy in the Six Nations, in a game that probably Ireland need to win. And Andy Farrell has said earlier this week that Ireland need to win, and they need to win their next 3 games, and they need to finish off this Six Nations on a good note. There is an element of risk about Harry Byrne, fitness-wise and in terms of getting up to speed and whatever the game plan is. And he says that we can't throw in any kid by just guessing. If it's going to be guesswork and they feel that there is enough of a plan that exists in this Ireland team that you can't throw in any kid and guesswork, then I think fair enough, to be honest with you. I want to see the kid in there ASAP, but there are enough reasons to suggest that actually he's not the ideal pick for the Italy game.
I'm of the view that, like, so this conversation comes up so regularly, and the answer is always that now is not the right time. And my view is simply that if now is not the right time, then whenever will be. Like, it's never going to be. If it's against Italy in the Six Nations in a year that there's not going to be any fans in the stadium, now has got to be the time. And in terms of guesswork, like, I'm a bit flabbergasted by the Harry Byrne thing. And, like, yes, you're right that he hasn't played a lot over the last little while. And by the way, thinking about it ahead of this chat, I you know, and I know that you've been reading Ronan O'Gara as well in the Examiner this morning, and feel free to give the summary of what he was saying. But, like, I was definitely of the view that maybe one of the mitigating factors that Andy Farrell can't necessarily talk about too much is that maybe if Conor Murray was playing, maybe that was a stronger case to have a Harry Byrne in there, because you had a wise old head, you had that bit of experience, you had somebody maybe above any of those things who could actually run a game in a way that a French nine might, if things went to pot for you a little bit, like a real sort of old hand of experience there in a way that Jameson Gibson Park just wasn't going to be. And maybe that fed into it. But I think in terms of guesswork, like, it's not new news that Harry Byrne is a real talent. And, like, it's doing him a disservice to say that this has been a brand new conversation. Like, there's been talk of Harry Byrne into the Ireland team for a while. Obviously enough that Andy Farrell himself thinks something of him to bring him in and have him about the training sessions or whatever. But I just think let him at it. Like I'd be of the view that if now is not the right time to give youth its chance with the Irish rugby team, we can stop having the conversations about it ever in relation to Ireland and the Six Nations. About it as I said earlier, I feel very deflated by the idea that it feels like our coaching ticket at the minute, and from how well you've summarised the scenario, I don't disagree with a huge amount of it. It feels like they're uber conservative, and I think now is the time to throw caution to the wind a little bit.
I think that there's a strong case to be made for that. I just feel that the Harry Byrne situation is being equated to Ireland's philosophy and the lack of creativity a little bit too easily. I think we need to take Andy Farrell at face value this week and accept that the Six Nations has maybe just come too early for Harry Byrne. Like, tonight is a really exciting... Tonight's probably going to be more exciting for Irish rugby fans than any of the Six Nations games. Let's face it. Actually getting to see the Byrne brothers actually getting to play together. And that's kind of exciting from Ross Byrne's standpoint as well, the lineup that Leinster have picked tonight. But if that game happens 2 months ago, and he puts in a couple of games after that, and he's fully fit and he's proving himself, then you can equate the two. Then he's got a fully fit flying out half that he is neglecting to pick. The thing is, Andy Farrell says that he doesn't believe he's had a bad back. He hasn't played enough rugby. That is the reason why he's not picking him. It's not to do with the lack of creativity or the lack of balls in this Irish coaching team. That might exist, but that's not the reason for this.
Yeah. So look, I would be of the view that they've made a conservative pick. Now, I also think they've made a bad pick, right, in selecting Billy Burns, because there's way too many Burns and Burns at the minute. But I just think that actually Ross Byrne in some ways, and like poor old Ross Byrne, right? Like, he's nearly 26 now. He has over 10 caps for Ireland. He's rock solid, if not necessarily, I think everybody can agree, in the Dan Carter mould necessarily. Jack Carty, as Brian O'Driscoll outlined, is very much more of that. I'll take the ball to the line a bit more, and a bit more of a cutting edge about him. He's very much, and I don't want to underplay his prowess, but like, he's steady Eddie, right? But regardless, rural Ross Byrne must be thinking, like, I've got my brother about to ruin my Leinster career and maybe my Ireland career, and now I'm back up to this guy. I just think that, like, how, you talk about sort of instilling a bit of confidence in a player. Ross Byrne must be thinking, like, and like, he comes on and he does a really good job for Ireland, and he that's the sort of player he is. Jack Carty,
I'm with you.
You can make the case for Jack Carty, like he's a bit older than Ross Byrne, even same sort of experience profile, as you say, playing good rugby for Connacht, bit more of an edge about him. Like, so I'm not hanging my hat on Harry Byrne. I think it would be unbelievable. I'd love to see him and Craig Casey get a lash against Italy. I don't think we're putting the result in jeopardy by starting those players either. I think that, like, we've seen enough of both of them. They can play rugby. They are good players. They are the future of this Irish rugby team, and so it's only a matter really of when. And I think now.
I'm with you on Ross Byrne. I feel sympathy for him with the way the last couple of weeks have gone, that he's the forgotten man, and the fact that his brother is being spoken about everywhere doesn't make things any easier. The thing is, what is the rugby calendar going to look like later on this year is something that we actually just don't know. And this maybe strengthens your argument. Is there going to be enough of these Mickey Mouse tests for Craig Casey and Ross Byrne to start together, especially on the lines year? This isn't going to be an ordinary 2021. Like, this is not the way it looked. This isn't the way it was in 2017, for example. But that's the parallel here, actually. A further parallel with the James Ryan thing is that was a Lions year. That's your opportunity to put your hand up as a debutant when the test players are away playing somewhere else, or who've got selected for the Lions. So maybe it doesn't look that way this year, and maybe there'll be less opportunities, in which case, obviously, the Italy game takes on far more importance in terms of blooding players. But I still think the importance, and what we do know, is that there is prize money on offer for this year's Six Nations. They want to finish above Italy. They need to beat Italy. They can't afford to get the wooden spoon. They need to finish as high up in this table as possible, and that's all they know. And they need to try and win this game. And starting Casey and Harry Byrne, who the head coach believes not to be fully fit, is just too big a risk, especially given the recent information. Just to briefly mention Roland O'Gara's column this morning, actually, because he's separated Murray and Sexton here, which I think is the right way to think about this, where the Craig Casey conversation should be about, can he become Conor Murray's out half, Conor Murray's backup at the next World Cup? Whereas when it comes to out half, the conversation should be about who will Sexton be backup to. And I know Ronan O'Gara said that on the show before, but he's going one step further in the Examiner this morning and saying it should be separated, that the Murray thing is a far different conundrum altogether. So the key is, when can we have a look at Harry Byrne playing beside Conor Murray? And that's when they'll get a real idea of how good the out half is. And that should go for every out half. That should go for bringing Jack Carty back into the team if that ever happens. If any of the young Munster lads get an opportunity, that should happen. O'Gara, by the way, is projecting a Carbery, Harry Byrne and Sexton axis in 2 years' time for the World Cup. Sorry, Ronan O'Gara says management is probably projecting a Carbery, Harry Byrne, Sexton axis. So that's how he sees it going over the next little while. And if he's right, then Harry Byrne's going to get his chance. We have to take Andy Farrell at face value this week, saying he's just not ready for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah. I mean, I'd just lash him in there on. Do you know what I would love to do? And like, there's nobody closer to it than Andy Farrell and Mike Catt, right? So it's not necessarily a fair comparison, but I'd love to anonymously speak to 10 head coaches at whatever level you want it, like a high, let's say European Cup level, and get them to do an Irish depth chart and see how far down it Billy Burns actually is. I mean, outside of Dan McFarland, I think that he's certainly not in the top three, I don't think. And I know that aspect of that is hindsight, but we'll see what happens with the team selection next week. I'm desperately hoping that we're starting to look to the future, but we shall see. It's gone 8:10 on this Friday morning. We've loads still to come. We're going to talk plenty of football upcoming between now and 10 o'clock. We're going to cross live to Australia. We're going to catch up with Cora Staunton and some other little bits and bobs as well. So it is 8:10. You're watching OTB AM. We've the crappy quiz as well coming a bit later on. And as I said, Cora from Australia as well. And we're going to talk to Andy Mitten about Manchester United next.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
When Matt Busby signed me, I joined a club with 3 European footballers a year, a World Cup winner. Unbelievable to play with Busby. Matt Busby management was incredible. He picked players like a jigsaw puzzle. He didn't pressurise you. Go out and enjoy yourself. He never swore. Matt Busby never swore. Can you imagine that from a manager today? He never swore.
Off the Ball, Saturdays from 1 on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
Check out the Boyle Sports app today for details on which football match is getting the no-lose treatment this week. Plus, browse through dozens of new player markets, all powered by Opta. Shots on target, left foot, right foot, headed goals, assists and more. See the Boyle Sports app for full T's and C's. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie 18+.
I'm Watson. You're welcome to Golf Weekly.
Hey, this is going to be fun.
Very happy to say European captain and, of course, three-time major winner Padraig Harrington joins us.
Today's special guest on Golf Weekly is Lee Westwood.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm honoured and delighted.
Let's bring in Paul McGinley, who joins us now. Paul, you're very welcome.
Shane Lowry, how are you keeping?
I'm good, thanks, yeah. Well, I'm as good as I can be.
The biggest names in golf and Ireland's best golf podcast, Golf Weekly, now exclusively available on Patreon. Go to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly to sign up now.
Calling all builders, joiners, plasterers and dryliners. Need advice on the right materials for the job? Consider it done. You need them on site and in your hand. Consider it done. You want access to over 10,000 products from the leading construction brands without having to start up the van. Consider it done. There's another way of doing things. eTag. We talk with you to solve your problem and deliver what you need directly onto site. No second guessing, no seconds wasted. Click etag.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Turn our focus to football. Andy Mitten from United We Stand. Good morning to you, Andy.
Good morning.
United obviously do a job in Real Sociedad in Turin last night, 4-0 the result. Was this another insight into how good Manchester United can be when they get their act together, Andy, or was it an uncharacteristically poor performance from Sociedad?
The result surprised me because I watch a lot of Spanish football, and Real Sociedad have been one of the teams that have impressed me this season. They've got a very young team and they are inconsistent, but they've hit decent form, and they had David Silva back, who's clearly been one of the best players in football in recent years. But United battered them. Maybe it wasn't a 4-0 game like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said. But I think the way that the Basques played favoured Manchester United. They like to have possession. They have a high line. They press. And Manchester United can be ruthless in attack. And they were. And there was a wobbly first 5 or 6 minutes when Eric Bailly made a couple of mistakes. But once United had scored and settled, there was only going to be one winner, and 4-0 is emphatic. It means that back at Old Trafford, players can be rested. And when that draw was made, my first reaction was, oof, that's probably the toughest draw Manchester United could get in this stage of the Europa League. So while people are saying, I can't believe how poor Real Sociedad were, I think you've got to credit Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes was fantastic. Dan James improved as the game went on. Dean Henderson had a good game too. Marcus Rashford never stopped working. Needed a goal. He's not been scoring enough goals lately. So coming on top of a pretty poor run of form, when United have gone a bit flat, and the draw at West Bromwich on Sunday was a big disappointment, and you combine that with Manchester City's ruthless winning machine, that has dampened the mood somewhat among United fans in recent weeks. So definitely a good win. I think it's a competition United should be going all out to win. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs a trophy. It's not going to be the Premier League this year. I think that's become really clear this year as City won yet again. And the Europa League will be difficult. First of all, United have got to get to a semi-final, then get beyond a semi-final, which the team have failed to do 4 times now under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And in the best case scenario, there'll be a final in Gdansk, in sunny Poland in May, and maybe even with supporters there, but that's me being optimistic.
Can you see any hallmarks of that Liverpool team that got beaten in that Europa League final to start a brilliant few seasons for them in this United team?
United are improving, but I've just done a piece about PSG and Manchester City pulling away because they don't have the same financial constraints that every other club does. And United are one of the biggest clubs in the world. The revenues and the commercial activity has been headline news for 2 decades now. But there's no way Manchester United will be in a position to spend the type of money that they were in a position to a year or 2 ago because of COVID, because of losing out on over £4 million per home game when there's no supporters there. So United need to recruit intelligently. City's recruitment has been better than United, so has PSG's. It's all right saying, yeah, they're owned by the Emiratis, they're owned by the Qataris. That much is absolutely true, but they've had good football people in and they've recruited pretty smartly and spent a lot of money as well. United have got a good youth system. It's much better than it was 5 years ago. I think Ollie's doing a good job. You've got to do a great job at Manchester United. You know, people won't be settling long-term for 2nd, 3rd or 4th. They'll settle for it this season if more points are picked up than last year. If there's a cup win, then that's a clear mark of progress. But it needs players. It's clear to see. A right winger is a problem position for United. The central defence has been an issue in recent weeks. And the forwards, while attacking on their day, I mean, I've watched Haaland and Mbappe this week. They're a different level to anyone Manchester United have got. So United fans rightly celebrate when Rashford does well, or Martial, who's had a pretty poor season actually, does well, or when Cavani does well. But there are small margins. Solskjaer always talks about them. And I saw PSG go to Camp Nou on Wednesday and absolutely destroy Barcelona. And they've got that in them. Now, ironically, Manchester United have gone away to PSG and won twice and beaten Manchester City away a few times. But let's not kid ourselves. There's a big difference in the gap in quality between United, PSG and City.
I wanted to ask Andy about you mentioned the shaky start a bit earlier, and I don't know if it's become a bit of a feature, but Eric Bailly obviously had a bit of a slip. Harry Maguire as well, like looking at some of his play at times, he was so far removed from the line that most of his colleagues was holding. And you mentioned there just in terms of the central defence, an area that needs bolstering. How much road does Harry Maguire have left in a United shirt? Is this an urgent thing for them now, or is he still going to be a part of the medium to long term for them?
I think it will be for several reasons. Is the club captain. He's not been the issue as much as Victor Lindelof has. And you can see with Bailly. He's a very good player. After that wobbly first 5 to 7 minutes, the defence actually played quite well because the way Real Sociedad played suited Manchester United. But that's not good enough. Look at what happened at West Bromwich. If you start in games by making major errors, better teams would have punished Bailly for that error at the start of the game in Turin last night. So it's one reason why Manchester United are looking at central defenders. It's been an issue for years now. It's why Jose Mourinho brought Bailly in and Victor Lindelof in. It's why Ole Gunnar was around and has promoted Harry Maguire, who was the most expensive defender in world football, to be captain. Has he been transformative like Virgil van Dijk was for Liverpool? No, he's been good. He's been 7, 8 out of 10. But again, is good enough when you want to be the absolute best? So what United need to do is 2 things. One, they'll continue scouting extensively. Kounde, who's been scouted in Sevilla, is very good, but he didn't have a great game against Haaland on Wednesday night in the Champions League. And 2, continue to move on players who are earning a fortune, people like Phil Jones, who've had the time at the club to lessen the wage bill. Every major club, probably apart from City and PSG, are cutting back. They're cutting the wage bill down. They have to. There are fire sales at Barcelona and Real Madrid. They have to more than anybody. United are not in that desperate situation, but they've got to cut back. There's no point having players there earning £100,000 a week who are not even playing or who are featuring sparingly. So Ollie's done a pretty good job of moving players on. And loaning Jesse Lingard out, that looks like being a win-win for everybody because he's playing well at West Ham. He's clearly got value. He can clearly be a star in a good Premier League team. Someone will pay good money for him. And that helps everybody there. Marcus Rojo has been moved on. I mentioned Phil Jones. Juan Mata's not got a long-term future at the club. He's another one of the big earners, but he's a very good influence in the dressing room. So it is a slow but improving, I'm going to say process, but it is a process. What other word do you want me to use? But there needs to be minimum requirements. You know, Manchester United outside the top 4 this season will not be good enough. Simple as that. And back to my point about a cup win, that will lift the mood among the fans, among the players. It will give them confidence, whether it's the FA Cup, whether it's the Europa League. But we saw what happened when Manchester City came to Old Trafford in the League Cup semi-final. They are better. They're the best defender on the pitch in Ruben Dias. They're the best midfielder on the pitch in Fernandinho. They are better at the moment. And United have got to try and aim to close that gap. But it's really, really difficult because City have got a brilliant manager. They've got the financial backing and they've recruited well. It's all right pointing out at these clubs for the recruitment because of their vast wealth. Look at PSG's starting 11 the other night. Of course, he had Mbappe, but Paredes, Moises Kean, Idrissa Gueye, both of them came from Everton. I didn't recall Real Madrid and Barcelona fighting to sign these players. Keylor Navas, he wasn't in favour at Real Madrid. So under a very astute sporting director, Leonardo, PSG have recruited very astutely. And yes, they might still be second in Ligue 1 at the moment, but they look pretty ominous to me in Camp Nou the other night.
That's really interesting. Like, is that a model then that Manchester United can look at and try and work with? That idea that you have your one clear superstar who is better than everybody else and to fit everybody and purchase around that player. And Manchester United, could they almost do that with Bruno Fernandes? Almost tailor every signing they make this summer to, hold on a minute, how is our attack, for example, going to look in relation to Bruno and how this player can play with him?
I think United need more than one Bruno-class player. If you look at how many United players will get into the City team at the moment beyond Bruno, Luke Shaw is having a really good season. Maybe De Gea when he was in his prime, but his stock has fallen. I mean, PSG have also got Neymar, who's not a bad player either. So they have spent big, but it's the sporting director who has the power. Do Manchester United need a sporting director? I think what United have done is they've bestowed the power to the manager to make that decision. And that's why they don't want to keep swapping and changing managers. The manager doesn't want a sporting director. No manager does, because you're taking away his power. Is one reason why Thomas Tuchel left PSG. He wanted autonomy. There's always that conflict between sporting director and coach. And fans might see it as an ideal model. Well, I see the realities because I speak to people at clubs like Barcelona and I see why Tuchel left his job at PSG. Managers want to bring their own players in, and they don't like it when someone else makes the decision for them. Best case is when you have a situation at City where there's a big level of trust between the sporting director and the coach, because they go back decades together, and that can work as well. But Solskjaer, to be fair to him, I think he's got a good eye for a player. His signings have been good, and he was the one who pushed for Bruno. He wanted Bruno 6 months earlier, but financially, United couldn't do that earlier on. People think that Man United can go out and blow everyone out the water for transfer fees. It's simply not true. And sometimes United are right to be hesitant or just not pay the demands of Borussia Dortmund when they want 120 for Jadon Sancho. That would have been a mistake. It was too much. Football's economy was declining. It was the Germans who were being unrealistic, unwilling to compromise, unwilling to bend. Will they get 120 million for Jadon Sancho this summer or next summer? I tell you, if they do, I'll put a Liverpool shirt on next time I come on the show for you. But I can't see it happening. He's a very good player. I watched him closely the other night. But I think it's Dortmund who misread the market and not United.
Yeah. Does that an insight into Erling Haaland? I don't know if we can get you to tie your Liverpool colours to the mast as well for that, Andy, but the likelihood of that happening or not?
Well, I went down to Seville and I covered the game for TV, and I was being asked, will he come to Spain? Will he come to Spain? Spanish clubs are interested in him. I think, well, of course he would be, It's like, what heterosexual male wouldn't be interested in Elizabeth Hurley? Whether you get that person or not is a completely different matter. And I do not think that Real Madrid or Barcelona will be able to compete with PSG or Manchester City when it comes to a transfer fee for Haaland. And he's probably one who they can get over 100 million for because he's so good. I think Haaland in Spain would be a huge success because the Spanish league doesn't have any player like him. And I think he'd also be fine in the Premier League. But I see a shift towards the Premier League in terms of the financial power there, although I can see a decrease in transfer fees and even wages. I don't think the next television contract's going to be as high as the previous ones. You see the talk muted about European Super Leagues, and maybe Barca and Madrid are hanging on to that more because they could see that as a get-out clause to start buying and spending huge amounts of money again. From what I'm told, with Haaland, another season or two, and then he'll make a move on to a super club, if you like. I would suspect that if you're going to push me, I'd say Manchester City. But right. I don't have any evidence of him going there. But that's what I would envisage far more than him going to Madrid. Barca have got massive financial problems. It's all right, the front pages of the Catalan dailies saying we want to sign, Pele and Maradona and all these world incredible stars. There is a financial reality which is very, very different to that. And that's why Barca and Madrid, they've both had to look for younger players and spent a lot of money on younger players, and some of them have been very successful. Barca signed Pedri for 5 million. Very, very good 18-year-old midfielder. Madrid have spent a lot of money on young players, so they're pinning their future on that, whereas Liverpool went for more mature players and City just recruited wisely. But I see the financial shift moving away, even from the top Spanish clubs towards the biggest English clubs.
So Haaland to Manchester City, Kylian Mbappe to Liverpool. I'm sure as a Manchester United fan, you're just going to sit back and enjoy these two greats going toe-to-toe for the Premier League every season.
It's absolutely wonderful when, I'm watching, I'm at a game this week and I just check out Everton and City are doing, and after 50-odd minutes, it's 1-1. Okay, now we're talking. And then I just get messages coming through saying City are battering Everton, We couldn't see out the game. They're absolutely destroying them. And look at the bench. And I tweeted after the match, the Premier League's over in February. That's how I felt about it. Pretty sad to say that, but that's how I felt about it. Are you going to take away from the sporting achievement of Manchester City? No, but the model of the ownership of the clubs becomes more of a concern. For clubs like United and Liverpool, with their American owners, they've both got debts. I've never been a fan of that model. I don't think the takeover should ever have been allowed to have happened at United, that highly leveraged buyout. I don't think it should happen in sport. And United don't need to be owned by anybody. And sometimes you see a clamour among United fans, oh, we need these oil-rich, oligarchs or people from Saudi Arabia. United are big enough to be hugely successful without any form of ownership. That said, I always thought Barca's model was the winning one, where the fans own it, and that's turned into a complete mess because the fans who vote for the presidents, well, the presidents have made major errors, and that's what puts the situation at Barca so stark at the moment. The club are in a mess. They've been talking about redeveloping Camp Nou for the last 12 years now. Not a brick has been laid there, and that's why you see what happened last summer when 4 world-class players were allowed to leave the club for less than a combined total of 10 million. And one of them, Luis Suarez, is now the top goal scorer for the top team in La Liga. It's just bizarre. So I talk about ownership is probably for another day, but I'm just giving you my thoughts on this. When Manchester City went 10 points clear, I just thought, oh, come on. There was a title race. I was quite enjoying that title race. I didn't think United were going to win the league this year. Not at all. Don't know any of my mates who support United who felt the same way.
Are you still thinking that, Andy? Just because, obviously there's, what is there? Newcastle this weekend. It could be another Sociedad. Obviously the return leg. It might be Chelsea after that. And then City at the start of next month. And the context of that is going to be, if we're still where we are, United win, maybe it's back on. Are you putting a nail in that?
I just can't see it happening because City are so good and they keep on winning, and they had injuries, but now De Bruyne and Aguero are both back. They're not bad players either. And Aguero's a really intelligent signing because he didn't cost a lot of money. 2011 from Atletico Madrid, I think he was 29-30 million. That was a really smart signing there. And I think if United can finish second and get 10 more points than last season, you've got to say that is a success. Next season, got to push even harder. But it'll be difficult because I cannot see a summer where I think United will definitely make a couple of big signings, and meetings are coming up. United are actively scouting, but that gap with City does worry me. Then again, if we'd spoken at the start of this season, I could have easily added Liverpool to that name, and Liverpool, I think they won 2 in the last 10. Well, I know they won because I checked it on Sunday morning before putting a cheeky tweet out which riled Jamie Carragher. I know Liverpool have combusted, and that surprises me because they were so good last season, European champions, world champions in 2019, but that can happen in football, even to Manchester City. So City have tended to lose the way in the Champions League, not been past the semi-finals since Pellegrini took them there in 2016. I met Pellegrini the other day, by the way. What a nice fella. And it's City. I think that the league is absolutely there for Manchester City, and United have got to get out of the current slump, get back to where they were for 2 or 3 months around Christmas time, and start to convince more than they have done, and stop those horrific, Sheffield United defeats at home, draw at West Brom away. Got to start playing. Those players have got to be better than they have been in recent weeks.
Solskjaer said this week there's been no talks over a new contract. He's got 18 months left to run in it. What's going to happen there?
I think it's a work in progress. I think if United were to finish 7th and not win a cup this season, then he'd be very fortunate to get a new contract. But if to finish second and win the FA Cup and there's more signs of progress, then I think he'll get a contract and he would deserve that. The club absolutely want him to continue. He's never, ever going to lose his job as part of the wobbles at the start of this season. But I've actually bought a dog and she's walking around. Come here. And I've never done this in my life before, but I don't want to disrupt her. There she is.
What have you got?
Class. What's her name?
Annie, she's called. Say hello to the world. Stop walking around.
Good morning, Annie. Ireland's,
I thought it would
Ireland's
have been
most
Bruno
famous dog.
I thought there would have been a good United name in there.
And Annie's a new purchase. Is she, Andy?
Yeah, I've never had a dog in my life before. I've never been a dog person, but kids have been onto me. I'm just a bit baffled now how she's got upstairs because she's not supposed to. So that's for me to work out. But She's called Annie, and if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wins a trophy, I might change her name to Ollie. So at the end of the season, but I think he's had a tough month, but I think on balance he's doing a decent enough job. But he's got to continue improving. And I know the club, they don't want to go through that cycle of chopping and changing all the time, of bowing to online pressure. They tried Mourinho, it didn't work. They tried Van Gaal, it didn't work. They tried David Moyes, it didn't work. I think it's difficult for anybody, but whoever it's going to be, I think needs patience. The patience which Ferguson had. I don't think there's any quick fixes where you can come in, and every manager always comes in and says, I need to make big changes here. I can remember David Moyes, the last time Manchester United played against Real Sociedad, and speaking to him off the record after the game, and he just said, huge changes are needed here. And that really struck me because United were the champions. They'd won the league 3 months previous. What do you mean that huge changes are needed here? But he was actually right, and he didn't stick around to make those changes. So this idea of a much improved youth system, there's some great young players at Man United. They beat City 4-0 at the weekend. Not 4-0, put 4 past City with Charlie McNeil, who came from City, scoring. Ahmad, we saw come off the pitch last night. Good signing. Been some really smart signings ahead of Brexit from Barcelona, from Atletico Madrid, from Real Madrid. And Shola Shoretire, I think I've pronounced that correctly, is come from Newcastle, of Nigerian descent. He's doing really well, as is Hannibal Mejbri, came from Monaco for £10 million. A lot of money for a 16-year-old kid, but they're looking good. But you can't expect them to be, De Bruyne class when they're teenagers. It takes time. But then you forward it 5 or 6 years. Is Martial De Bruyne class? No, these are the guys who've got to be delivering now. It's your Anthony Martial. Marcus Rashford is still improving. Mason Greenwood is still a teenager. Martial should have been far better this season than he has been. And that's not me saying get rid, because every player goes through periods where they dip in and out of form. But if you're going to be the best, Marcus Rashford should be pushing on scoring 30 goals for Manchester United this season. When you have the top players doing stuff like that, and your top scorer isn't a midfielder, albeit a penalty-taking one, that's when you start winning trophies.
All right. Thanks, Andy. And welcome, Annie, of course. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks. Nice to join you.
Nice. Cheers. Thanks, Andy Mitten on the line there from United We Stand, talking all things United. Plenty more to come over the course of the day. At midday, it's some OTB Gold, Jean Kilroy in conversation with Shane Hannon. That is coming your way at a midday today, 1:30. The Paddy Power half hour. Ger and Enda are going to take your market card for the weekend with all the football odds. Friday night racing as well from 3 o'clock with Ger and Johnny Ward there. Alan Keane is this week's subject in the Team 33 League of Ireland Legend piece from 4 o'clock. At 6, some more OTB Gold. Catherine Switzer on the 67 Boston Marathon, and Off the Ball live from 7 o'clock tonight, and Team 33 as always from 9. We've plenty more to come. We're crossing live to Australia to talk to Cora Staunton, and we're going to chat to Frank Greaney after these. We're not going to take some ads. I think we're going to go straight to Frank. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian.
Former schools rugby coach. I'm sure our viewers this morning will have seen this. Former rugby schools coach and teacher was yesterday sentenced to 8 years in prison for abusing 23 students between 1973 and 1990. John McClean, the man in question here, and joining us to shed some light on that, what's been going on there for decades in this country has been a very dark corner of Irish life, and to shine a bit of light on it is Frank Greaney. And Frank, you talk to us first of all about the extent of the abuse and how this John McClean used his role as a teacher and rugby coach to carry out the abuse.
I will, and I'll be very conscious of the time of day it is as well. Just to put things into perspective for you, your viewers and listeners, it took the prosecution the best part of about 7 hours over 2 days of court last week, at a sentence hearing last week, to outline all of his offending over a 17-year period at Terenure College. Can you imagine that, sitting for 7 hours, the guts of a full shift at work, listening to all of this abuse and how it has affected the 23 boys who bravely came forward. He was a teacher for 30 years at the private school in Terenure. He was an English teacher. He used his role as a teacher, as a rugby coach at the school, and through his role as costume fitter for the school plays to carry out this horrendous abuse. He pleaded guilty to 27 counts of abuse against 23 boys between 1973 and 1990. I won't go into the explicit details of what he'd done, to just give your listeners, I suppose, a flavour of some of the abuse that took place in the classroom. We heard one of the boys was abused in front of all of his classmates. We heard abuse took place under the guise of private tuition after class. We heard that he was appointed as the first year's form master, and that role required him to have an office, and he would bring boys to his office. When they got in trouble in class, he'd often meet them in the corridor standing outside their classrooms, and he would bring them to his office to reprimand them. And cruelly, he would often give them the option of taking a few lashes of a ruler, a six of the best, as he used to call it, or tell their parents what they had done. Now, more often than not, the pupil who found themselves in trouble would opt for the former. He would then lay them across his lap and he would lash them with this ruler on their bare backside. Afterwards, then he would pretend to comfort them, and that's when the abuse would take place. He also used his role as rugby coach at the school to abuse young athletes. He was the de facto physio for the team, even though he had absolutely no qualifications for that role. There was one promising young rugby player who injured himself in a blitz playing for Terenure College, and he was brought to a small treatment room in the school. He was summoned there, and when he went in, we heard that John McClean abused him in that treatment room. And when he confronted him about it, and I suppose he was a little bit older than some of the other survivors, and when he confronted him about it, John McClean's reaction was to drop him from the team. So there was that constant threat looming over the heads of these athletes that were summoned to his treatment room. Many dropped from the A team to the B team. Some promising young athletes that had sporting aspirations that were just dashed because of their interactions with John McClean. A lot of the abuse also took place. I mentioned earlier that he was a costume fitter for the school plays, and a lot of the abuse would have taken place through that role. There was one boy who was summoned to the changing room. The door was closed behind him. It often was. His office was often locked when he carried out this abuse. 3 dresses were placed in front of this young boy, and he was told to try them on, and he was told to take his clothes off. When the boy stripped down to his underwear to try on these costumes, John McClean made it very clear that he was to take off the underwear. The effects on these boys, now grown men, has been horrendous, as you can imagine. The abuse taking place over a 17-year period. It's incredible that it went on for that long.
Yeah, it's really horrific, even to listen to the details of it, and so much as you've summarised there. In relation to the school itself, then, Frank, Terenure College and the Carmelites order, in the wake of those revelations that they were made as far back as 1979, have they questions to answer here? Have we heard from them yet, or how will that play out?
They issued that's a very good question, Adrian. They issued a statement after John McClean was sentenced to 8 years in prison yesterday, 11 years to 3 years suspended. That was the sentence that Judge Pauline Codd handed down. And on behalf of Terenure College and the Carmelites order, and I suppose for those of you who aren't familiar with Terenure College, it's a private fee-paying school with a good rugby tradition in Dublin, but it's run by the Carmelites order of Ireland. It's a Catholic school under their trusteeship. And they did issue a statement yesterday, and they made an apology to the survivors. They commended them for their bravery. They said they were committed to supporting any survivors of abuse at their school in any way that they can. There was no mention in that statement of financial support. Maybe we'll get to that in a moment. But as far back as 1979, this abuse began. The first offence that was brought before the court that he was convicted of took place in 1973. In 1979, we heard that one of the boys went to the school prefect with a complaint of abuse against John McClean. That prefect then went to the school principal. The school principal at the time did invite the parents of the boy and indeed the boy in for a chat about what happened. The only action that was taken on the back of that complaint was to remove John McClean from his role as costume fitter for the school plays. No other action was taken. We heard that the then school principal who handled the matter pulled the school captain out of class one day, and he brought him in. And this was after he had spoken to the boy and the boy's parents. And he brought the school captain to his office and he said the allegations made against John McClean were false, were not true. And that was the end of that as far as the school captain was concerned. So no further action taken apart from, as I mentioned, him being removed from that role, which gave him, I suppose, incredible access to the children. And that's where a lot of this abuse took place. Incredibly, Adrian, the following year in 1980, he was appointed form master for the first years. That role, as I mentioned earlier, required him to have an office. And we now know that 9 boys were abused in that office after he took up that role after 1980. So that was after a complaint had been made to the school principal in 1979. Incredible stuff. In 1996 then, and this is more troubling, in 1996, we heard that a parent of one of the boys went to the head of the Carmelites Order in Ireland. Again, they oversee and run Terenure College, brought a complaint to him of abuse against John McClean, who was still a teacher at the school. We heard that this parent told Father Robert Kelly that he was going to the Gardaí. Father Kelly then went to John McClean. We heard that the Carmelites solicitor got involved. There were a number of meetings held over the summer of 1996. And we heard there was a note taken at one of those meetings whereby John McClean admitted to the allegation that was brought before him. Now, he was told subsequently that he was no longer welcome to be a teacher or rugby coach at Terenure College. For the next academic year, he was granted a 3-year career break. After that, then he went on to take up a coaching role at UCD, and he never returned to Terenure College after that summer of 1996. Gardaí investigating these allegations then went back and got this note. And clearly there was this admission on the note of these meetings over the summer of 1996. And it was put to Father Kelly. And he said to Gardaí investigating these allegations that he didn't have a specific memory of John McClean admitting to that allegation. But he said that if it was in the note, it is true. What will happen now, I imagine, and what has already happened, as I understand it, 7 of the 23 survivors of John McClean's abuse at Terenure College have initiated legal action before the High Court, civil actions. They're suing Terenure College and the Carmelites Order. They are named defendants in these legal actions. And you would imagine, it's dangerous to speculate, but I know from speaking to some of the survivors outside court yesterday that they intend to follow the same route. The Carmelites Order and Terenure College did issue that statement yesterday, but it's fair to say that there's still a bit to run on this story, and it's likely to end up in the High Court in the not so distant future.
It's incredible, the remarkable how similar a lot of these stories that have cropped up, but what a blot on Irish society these stories have been, this abuse have been in this country over the last decades, and the similarities, as you explained them there, that have cropped up with the cover-ups that have happened, and generally with religious orders at the centre of them, has been incredible. Finally, Frank, just before we let you away, one of the victims and the judge spoke glowingly about the survivors that have come forward to get us where we are today. But one of the survivors waived his right to anonymity and spoke afterwards.
He did, and the man that you're talking about is a 59-year-old taxi driver called Damien Hetherington. And he deserves huge credit and praise for coming forward firstly, but also then choosing to waive his right to anonymity so that he could share, I suppose, the impact of the abuse with the public. And he also had a very important message yesterday when he spoke to us outside court for survivors of historical abuse in general. He said, it's never too late to come forward, never give up. He was standing there elated with how things transpired, that he was believed and that there were others out there. And he felt a great show of solidarity with his other survivors. And granted, they chose not to waive their rights to anonymity for their own reasons. And that is, of course, their right. He did, and he took great solace in it. And he said that it was of some comfort to see his abuser been taken away to begin a prison sentence. So he was telling other survivors of abuse in general, again, not necessarily in relation to John McClean, that they will be listened to, that the Gardaí take these matters very seriously. He was the boy who was abused at 12 years of age in front of his entire class. We heard that they handed up some essays. Again, John McClean was an English teacher. And the boy's father bought him a very fancy hardback copybook, cost him 50p, Damien said. And this was handed up with his essay in it. And when John McClean handed back their essays, the boy noticed that he hadn't received his one back. And he was concerned because, again, this was a special gift from his father. It has sentimental value to it. And he asked John McClean for it back, assuming that it was just an oversight and a mistake that he hadn't given his one back to him. And John McClean replied, and I think this just went to the heart of how cruel a man he was, and he said that he would have handed back if he felt there was 50p worth of work in it. And then he ordered him up to the top of the class. John McClean sat on his desk, spread his legs, and he drew the boy, Damien, closer to him as he read out the winning essay for the rest of the class. That took about 15 to 20 minutes. 15 to 20 minutes, the grand scheme of things, isn't a very long time. It has had a devastating impact on Damien Heatherton. It's fair to say that it ruined his life. He described himself yesterday in a jovial way as the best taxi driver to come out of Terenure College. And what he meant by that was he had high expectations for his education. His parents didn't have a lot of money. And this was a theme shared and a feeling shared by a lot of the survivors, was that their families couldn't afford to send them to Terenure College. They scrimped and saved. And one of them remembered his parents counting out coppers on the kitchen table to try and pay fee installments. So this wasn't an easy thing for their parents to do, but they felt it was the right thing to do. They wanted Damien and the others to have an excellent education. And Damien found himself terrified of going to school, suffered from depression afterwards, took to mitching, would wander around the streets of Dublin, city in the 1970s, waiting for the time to go home. He couldn't tell his parents. He was afraid to tell his parents. He also didn't want to disappoint them. He felt feelings of shame. A lot of them complained of feeling confused about their sexual orientation. Some of them became aroused by the abuse, and they thought that perhaps, they were gay. That affected them greatly. Such confusion and mixed feelings at such a young age. They all felt robbed of an education, and that lies squarely at the desk of John McClean. Some of them turned to drink, some of them turned to drugs. As I mentioned, they all suffer from depression in their own little way. Damien is a beacon of hope for the survivors, in my opinion. He put that down largely to his wife and his 3 amazing children. And if Damien is driving around Dublin and listens to this in his taxi today, he can be very proud of himself. He has done a great justice to himself, his family, and arguably more importantly at this point, to other survivors who may be sitting at home with a story to tell, but maybe feeling too afraid to come forward. They now know that they have a voice, and that voice will be listened to.
Frank, thanks very much. Frank Greaney on the line this morning to take us through the details of that chilling case that unfolded in the court. Outline, there will be plenty more to come from it as well, and when that arises, it's such an important story in this country particularly. We will shine a light on it. It is gone 10 to 9 on this Friday morning, and delighted to have you along with us. We've lots more to come. Do keep your comments coming into us, and we'll bring you some of those. We've been chatting to Andy Mitten a little bit earlier on all things Manchester United, and you can check out that full piece up on OTBSports.com. Now, the Offaly manager John McClean was on the show with Nathan and Will last night, and got to talking about the GAA season for 2021. Take a listen.
No, to be quite honest with you, there isn't. And I started off in getting involved at inter-county level 30 years ago, and it's the first time we've ever had a WhatsApp group or an intervention of this kind where we can discuss certain things. And of course, it's all about the COVID-related scenario and the uncertainty. That's what the information exchange was about, and particularly last weekend, when we discovered that our matters had been removed and we weren't quite aware of it. Now, I don't know what does that make a huge difference on a bigger? It might for grant assistants or something to be not to be classified as elite professionals, similar to the FAI. I think some were quite a bit perturbed about that aspect of it. But no, there's nothing radical. The reality is we're in a very, very, very difficult situation. We accept that and recognise that, and we're involved in something that we love dearly, intercounty football in my case, and I'm just passionate about it, and I just hate to see time slipping by. I mean, if you're unlucky enough to be at the end of your playing career, to lose a season or two, it's just difficult. And and another issue, I brought in 4 or 5 young guys into the squad, the Offaly panel. And I mean, if I don't have an opportunity to have a challenge game or 2 or 3, I mean, it's going to be very, very difficult for me in 4 weeks to establish how good these lads are in that kind of a training environment, because we'll be very, very cagey for the first week, and it'll be the second or third week, realistically, where you get any kind of real intensity or quality. And I think that, young fellas will lose out on it at the end of the day, Nathan, and that's just an issue from my perspective, just chatting about it here now.
Yeah, that's John Mahan in conversation with Nathan and Will last night. You can check out that full piece, head along to the website, and there's plenty of good stuff up there. Some comments coming in on, we were chatting about the All-Stars earlier on. If people hasn't got a chance to catch up on those this morning, they were just released a little earlier this morning, and the big stories are that there are 9 Dublin players in it. It equals the efforts of the 1981 All-Star team. Raymond Galligan gets the nod over Stephen Cluxton in goal. You've a heavily dominated Dublin defence with Mick Fitzsimons, James McCarthy, John Small, who I think that might be his first one. John Small gets the nod there, and Owen Merchant as well. And they're joined there by Padraig Faulkner and Oisin Mullen, who had such a brilliant season for Mayo. You have Brian Fenton, who's just, nail him into the midfield All-Star for 2021 at this stage, who's back there alongside Thomas Galligan. And then up front, the Dubs are Kieran Kilkenny, Con O'Callaghan and Dean Rock, and Niall Scully, who wins his first one, and they're joined there by Killian O'Connor and Conor Sweeney. So that's the makeup of the team, and some comments that have come into us about it. Mark says, split Dublin into 9 lads, a team for each All-Star. They should give you something to talk about for your normal once a month Dublin split talk when you run out of stories. Dermot says only 9. Catherine on Instagram, Paddy Durkin should have got one, echoing your point from a bit earlier on. Oh, and Dermot Burkhardt McKiernan deserves one. Damien can't believe that Cluxton hasn't made the cut. Kieran agreeing with the Durkin point, as is Sean Hall, and Ara wondering what Stephen Cluxton needs to do. Like, he does suffer a little bit from the fact that, like, he's playing behind an amazing defence. Like, the guy who revolutionised the game, as you said earlier, probably isn't ever going to see the amount of All-Stars that to be fair, Stephen Cluxton probably doesn't give a shite about.
I think the main reason why he doesn't win as many All-Stars as perhaps he deserves is that there's only one goalkeeper in the All-Star team. They've got a creative way of getting the best players into the team every single year outfield. But if there's one person ahead of Cluxton in the line, then he loses out. And it's as simple as that. I'm interested actually in the year that Brian Fenton didn't win his All-Star. Like he said there, he won one in 15, his first year on the scene. He won one in 16, he won one in 18, and he won one in 19. What happened in 2017? The one year he didn't actually win the All-Star. Colm Kavanagh and James McCarthy got the All-Stars on that occasion. James McCarthy being pushed into midfield in that year. Colm Kavanagh must have been absolutely incredible. Or maybe Brian Fenton maybe just had his off year, the 1 year where he didn't win an All-Star. Like, this is incredible. So what's he on now? This is his 5th All-Star. Is the record All-Star is Henry Shefflin? I presume it is. I presume that's what he has in sight at this point. And
what age is Fenton? 25, is he?
I think he's 27, in fairness. But like, if you think about, I'm literally just going through Shefflin's honours at this point, just to go through it. So All-Star hurler of the year, he won that 3 times, but then his All-Stars was 11. So Shefflin's won 11 All-Stars. Can Brian Fenton win another 6?
If he's 27 now, can he? Like, it's a grueling position. He'd have to be, if he won every year, he'd be, my maths are terrible, 5 and 6, he'd be 33-ish.
Don't rule any Dublin player out from doing things well into their 30s is all I'll say. Like, he started late at intercounty level. That maybe buys him a few other years at the other end of the candle. But yeah, no, it is like a big leap for him to be able to get there. But it just seems that every record is up for grabs when it comes to this Dublin team. Maybe 2017, he'll live to rue that, and maybe he'll I can definitely see him getting another few. He'll keep winning one every year until he's into his 30s anyway.
Yeah, and the rest of the country gets to gripe with the fact that, I mean, apart from Cavan, who, after we said earlier on, 50 years of winning 2 over that entire time, have won 3 now. So that in itself is quite remarkable. But most other counties can Kerry, chief amongst them, can start to feel a little bit. They can start to grind it out a little bit now. Sort of Peter King can stick that up in the Zoom dressing room wall, whatever it is they're doing at the minute, and start cranking it up if we eventually see a championship at some point in 2021. But that's the story from the All-Stars, and lots of comments coming in about it. If you have more reaction to that, by all means, please do lash that into us on any of the channels you happen to be watching or listening to us this morning. It is gone 9 o'clock. Monster weekend coming up across Off the Ball, including tomorrow. I am absolutely really looking forward to this Saturday panel. They're normally great chats, but this one is going to be, I think, especially brilliant, because John is going to be joined by 3 of the bona fide legends of the commentary game from 1:30 on the radio and across our social channels tomorrow. It's going to be Barry Davies, who's really the voice of football for me. He would have been very much the formative voice of football when I was growing up, watching, having to go over to the neighbour's house home, that's how old I am, to watch Match of the Day or whatever else it might have been. And so really looking forward to that. And he'll be joined by John Champion as well, and George Hamilton too. So 3 absolute legends of the commentary game alongside John from 1:30. And then the usual football Saturday, some interesting games. And John will be joined by David Myler and Dan MacDonald. That's right the way from 3 until 5. That's on Saturday. And then across on Sunday from 11:30 on the OTB social channels, we will have Colm Keys and Neil Reardon, reporters there. That'll be live on our social channels with the Sunday papers. Colm of the Indo and Neil from the Sun. So that's coming your way from 11:30. And then 2 o'clock on the radio, Premier League live commentary, Aston Villa against Leicester, Brian Kerr and Nathan on that. And then Stephen Doyle and Vinnie Perth for Arsenal Manchester City at 4:30. But so that's what's coming up on Off the Ball over the weekend. It's just after 9 o'clock on this Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, and we've got the crappy quiz coming up as well. We're going to hear from Louise Quinn as well, and we're back after these with Colts.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Off the Ball.
Foden again. Oh, what a finish from Phil Foden. Manchester City 4, Liverpool 1 at Anfield, and that is the pick of the bunch.
Manchester City will look to continue their incredible form when they make the trip to London this Sunday, and we'll have full live commentary of their visit to Arsenal on Off the Ball. Before that, Brian Kerr will be with Nathan Murphy calling all the action between Aston Villa and Leicester, plus Colm Keys and Neil Reardon will join Joe for the paper review. All that and lots more on this Sunday's Off the Ball.
Off the Ball. Don't miss a moment of the action every weekend from 1 p.m. on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
Check out the Boyle Sports app today for details on which football match is getting the no-lose treatment this week. Plus, study the form with our Racing Post Spotlight before watching the action with free live streaming on all UK and Irish horse races. See the Boyle Sports app for full T's and C's. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie. 18+.
Calling all builders, joiners, plasterers and dryliners. Need advice on the right materials for the job? Consider it done. You need them on site and in your hand. Consider it done. You want access to over 10,000 products from the leading construction brands without having to start up the van. Consider it done. There's another way of doing things. eTag. We talk with you to solve your problem and deliver what you need directly onto site. No second guessing, no seconds wasted. Click etag.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, you're watching OTB AM. We're live in association with Gillette. Good mornings start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. And I want to remind you as well that the best golf podcast on the planet is on the move from March the 11th. Golf Weekly is moving to Patreon, and if you sign up, we're going to give you a guaranteed podcast every Thursday. You're going to get extra episodes as well around the biggest tournaments of the year, interviews with golf's biggest names as well, and most importantly of all, you're going to become an official friend of the pod. You'll be able to chat to the lads, Joe, Nathan, Peter and Fionn. You get invites to our golf days when they return, and enjoy exclusive watch parties as well around the majors. So you can just head along to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly, and it'll take you to Patreon, and you can sign up there. $3.99 a month, or you can just search Golf Weekly on patreon.com, and that page is live now. So it'll be fully available for you, and plenty of you have been heading along to sign up, and you can go to that web link and take yourself there. So it's 9:04 on this Friday morning, and spring is here. As you know, there's a sniff of warmth in the air, but not for the next few minutes as we serve up our weekly dish, which is going to leave you a little colder than Micheál Martin saying, well, you asked for Christmas. Yes, it's cold cuts.
I am flabbergasted. Maguire. And they're here. Shocking. I'm disgusted. Maguire. And they're here. Get close to people. Move your feet. Move your feet. Maguire. And they're here. I am flabbergasted. I'm not too happy with all that now. Maguire. I would be swinging punches at that guy. They're here. Swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches. Maguire. And they're here. I'm fuming here watching this game of football.
There's a common thread that runs right through this week's Cold Cuts on, and it's all about the art of the apology, or avoiding it, as the case may be in many cases, including at number 4. It's Tom Brady. You'll remember he made the cut last week after being fully cut, to be absolutely fair to him, while buccaneering around Tampa Bay. What we didn't know at that time was that his act of mutiny while he was out in the high seas, but it didn't escape one Lorraine Groves.
It takes a lot of work, a lot of hard work, a lot of hours go into it. It just really upset me that this trophy was disgraced and disrespected by being thrown as if it was a real football. I didn't sleep for the past 2 nights because of this. I was that upset because I know the passion that goes into this trophy, and how my dad and all his fellow silversmiths are so proud to make this. I personally would like an apology, not just to me and my family and the other silversmiths, but to the fans.
Yes, the child of the silversmith, the silversmiths themselves, and the fans, most of all, they demand an apology. Actually, the fans seem pretty much okay with it, and the silversmiths are also mostly unmoved. But the daughter of the silversmith, well, she hasn't slept in 48 hours, Tom Brady, and she wants her bounty. And I have to say, I'm still really waiting for somebody to come out and say that entire thing is a hoax. It's utterly bizarre. In at number 3 this week, an unlikely war of words between the former Louth manager Peter Fitzpatrick and the League of Ireland, of all things. What offence was it, you ask? Well, Peter Fitzpatrick said the majority of League of Ireland clubs can't afford to pay their players. I mean, we are, of course, right now in the middle of a pandemic, and clubs who survive on gate receipts haven't had a paying punter through the gate the last 12 months, nor, by the way, has the paid video service been a ringing success. But anyway, the silversmith's daughter demanded an apology, and this time she got it. And Peter Fitzpatrick said, "I apologise with my whole heart if people took me up the wrong way," said Fitzpatrick. A wholehearted apology if you took him up the wrong way. So not an actual apology then. But to be fair, he is a TD, so we got to cut him some slack there. And unqualified apologies aren't really their thing, let's face it. In at number 2, Alan Judge. Everybody's seen this one this week. Bit of a bizarre one. Irish footballer Alan Judge. He gets almost nutted by a referee. It was really unseemly carry on, and you can see it there on otbsports.com. And needless to say, the referee, Darren Drysdale, he was contrite. He issued a statement. He said, "I apologise with my whole heart if Alan took me up the wrong way." Interestingly, Judge's Ipswich manager Paul Lambert wanted answers afterwards, and he said that he texted the head of the refs to say that he hadn't slept in 48 hours and that the fans demanded an apology. But in at number 1 this week, and I really can't believe that somehow it's a Cold Cuts debut for Eddie Jones. He's landed with a bang, or without a bang, as it turns out. He's apologised to the good rugby folk of England for his players lacking arousal, of all things. How does he explain the loss to Scotland and the half-cocked win over Italy? Well, the arousal level is the thing we're looking at most, said Eddie Jones during the week. Games have tended to be less aggressive generally in rugby, and I think it's been the same in football. There's been a bit of research that shows the arousal level of players has dropped, and therefore the type of play and the type of behaviour has been less aggressive. So, a not so stiff warning on from the unexpected consequences of fanless stadiums that none of us really counted on from Eddie Jones, bringing another Cold Cuts to a close.
Nothing gets you quite aroused like the sound of Swing Low And you have to say that Eddie Jones has a point there. Nothing. Things are swinging very low indeed for England at the moment, and that needs to change next season.
Appropriately, that's cold cuts.
I am flabbergasted. Maguire. And De Gea. Shocking. I'm disgusted. Maguire. And De Gea. Get close to people. Move your feet. Move your feet. Maguire. And De Gea. I am flabbergasted. I'm not too happy with all that. No. Maguire. I would be swinging punches at that guy. De Gea. Swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches. Maguire. And De Gea. I'm fuming here watching this game of football.
All right, it's 9:10. It's Friday morning's OTB AM with myself and Owen, and we're with you right through until 10 o'clock. We've Cora Staunton live from Sydney to come, but right now, time for the crappy quiz.
Chris Bond.
Oh, you're kidding me. September. Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
No! Is that right? I know! It's not right! Anybody else? Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz. What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday, we pit three of team off the ball up against one another in a no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant today is back for his first quiz of 2021. He has watched on with anger as his OTB colleagues have continually brought this esteemed slot into disrepute with their immature bickering. Back to bring some sense and maturity to proceedings, it is Phil the Power Egan.
Well, it's good to be back.
It's good to have you back. Good to have more brains involved. Adrian Barry has bowed out today.
I don't know about that now.
Nathan Murphy has bowed out as well today, which leads us on to our next contestant today, who swore that he would never get into chasing the dragon. But boy, has he been chasing the Dragon of Wales hard over the past few weeks. Shout out to Di and Gareth and Daffet and Gethin, who have escaped the clutches of this man's cynicism during the Six Nations to date. You don't want to get caught by the mustachioed menace, Ger Gilroy.
Wow, you're quite accusing me of being into my heroin. Wow, this is getting to darker places, though. Thanks.
Welsh heroin only is what he is into. Our last contestant
the poppies,
today.
Yes, okay, right. I get it. I got the Welsh. Okay, go for it.
Our last contestant today was sickened by the news that the GAA season will be pushed back this year. All those December pints turned down, all that turkey at Christmas shunned, all those nights camping in Andy McEntee's garden, all for nothing. Come to a county team near you soon. It is the Meath Hillbilly, Tommy Rooney.
Thanks for having me back.
You're welcome back. And GAA is back soon, so we will see you back on a pitch very soon as well, Tommy. It is Tommy versus Phil versus Ger today, and the format is a classic crappy quiz with a series of questions on different themes. Then we go into the slip and slide of trivia, which is the rapid fire round. You can podcast the crappy quiz on offtheball.com, OTBsports.com, I should say, or on the OTB Sports app.
What script are you using? It's from like 2012.
Slip and slide.
Yeah. Give us 5 out of 5, it says here. But just go onto the OTB Sports app and get this podcast, and it's
rate us on iTunes. Rate us on iTunes. I'll look up and see if there's anything good on iTunes there.
It's called Apple Music now, isn't it?
No, iTunes the app. Still iTunes on my computer.
Oh, is it still right?
So no.
Okay. Samsung user here. I've got iTunes on my Mac here actually. Very good point. You can podcast it there. You know the deal at this point. DM us at Off the Ball if you've got any questions for the crew next week. Round 1, the boring questions round. Never multiple choice. Phil. Who is Liverpool's third most recent club captain after Jordan Henderson and Steven Gerrard?
Third most recent club captain? As in, like, Sammy Hippiett?
Correct. 1-0.
No, that has happened again. Jojo, you got to be careful, man. That's 3 out of 4 weeks.
No, that's not Jojo's fault.
I didn't even notice
that.
That
was an answer. It was an answer.
That was an answer.
It's a good point. No. I'm going to... No, you better be careful. I'm coming in there.
As in Sammy Hippiett, I said. As in, that's the answer.
No, as in, yeah, exactly. Come on, Owen. Come on, step in. Take control.
Phil.
Not at all.
This is your first quiz of 2021. All right.
No,
just let you know,
Stephen Gerrard was given the captaincy, and he was taken off Sammy Hippier. Okay.
Okay, so you know
the question. I mean, the way the question was phrased, I was starting to think. Sometimes I don't listen to the questions properly, and then in my head I was thinking, is this something to do with what happened this season? Trent Alexander-Arnold getting the captaincy for a game.
But you didn't give an answer. You answered the question with a question.
No. Listen to the
fair
question.
Point. One other thing, you've given the football journalist, Liverpool supporting football journalist, a question about Liverpool. Owen.
Yeah, and okay, you like rugby. Your question's going to be about rugby.
I like lots of things. I'm not a rugby man.
No, hold on, Jared.
I didn't go to a posh school.
Jared, Gilroy, I got an Instagram DM 3 weeks ago, and it's only that I didn't realise you were on today that I would have had it ready to go, but I actually can't go and get it now. I'll bring it up the next time we're on a quiz together.
Good story.
I have Fergus got in touch with a detailed description of how yourself and Owen have been working together on the quiz over the last couple of weeks. He's actually laid out the easy questions that you've had, and he's put a weighting system in place. He said, look what Gilroy got on the first week of January compared to what you got. Look what Gilroy got on week 3 compared to what you got. So let's just see what Jared Gilroy gets today. He said that Jared's got something on Owen. Let's see what happens.
You're not the first GAA player to have Fergus as a pseudonym. Let's move on quickly.
Well, in fairness, if you're going to call someone a heroin addict in their intro, you probably give them a softball question as kind of that's how this whole system works. Really.
Owen hates me. He presents with me every day. We've got one of those we never speak off air. It's all completely faked every morning. There's zero chemistry except when the red light is on. We literally despise each other, can't stand each other's company. And now I'm being accused by some randomer with an Ireland flag in his Instagram handle.
He does actually.
Does he? Oh wow, I made that bit up.
I think so. I have to go find it. I'll dig it out. I'll bring it up next week.
Jer is Warren Gatland and I am Eddie O'Sullivan. The Night of the Long Knives is coming soon, Jer. And speaking of which, rugby question. Louis Rees-Sammet struck another win for sports people with double-barrel surnames last weekend with his masterclass against Scotland. But can you tell me the last person to play for Ireland in rugby with a double-barrel surname?
Great question.
Jemison Gibson Park.
Correct.
Actually, that wasn't a great question. That was such an easy bloody question.
You said it was a great question because you couldn't answer it. And then I answered it and you said it's not a good question. I mean, come on.
He played at the weekend.
I mean, that was the question.
Would you say that's an easier question, Tommy, than the one I just got?
To be honest, I didn't even listen to your question, Phil. I just give out because you answered it with a question.
Sorry, there was a question mark on my teleprompter. I just went up in my introduction.
We drafted Phil in for more sense, and this is actually already, after 2 questions in, being the most argumentative quiz we've had all year. And it's tiresome, but Tommy, make it 1-1. Name any county that have won an All-Ireland football final in the past and are currently experiencing a longer drought than Mayo.
Silence. Roscommon.
Correct.
No way.
He got it. Why? What's with all the shouting?
I thought Roscommon had never won one.
No, 1944. They won 2, yeah. 1944 was their last.
Balls. I thought Roscommon had never won one. I was like...
My mommy's from Roscommon, so that's why I knew that one.
Wexford,
there you go, Tommy.
Wexford, Kildare.
Tipperary.
Kilkenny.
I will actually... Sometimes I'm open to being self-critical. And, Tommy's mom being from Roscommon and getting a Roscommon GAA question is an absolute disgrace. And it is unfair on Phil and Jared that you got that. But you could have gone for Roscommon, you could have gone for Kildare, you could have gone for Tip, Wexford or Limerick. There were your possible options. Everybody scored a point. Everyone is unhappy, it seems, going into round 2.
Everyone's a winner.
Everyone's a winner. Round 2 is the Champions League General Knowledge Round. Call this the Boring Questions Round 2.0 if you like. The theme is Champions League. The questions are straightforward. What a way to celebrate the return of football's biggest club competition. Question 2 for you, Phil. Which team has finished runner-up more than any other in the history of the European Cup?
Ooh. Modern one, you'd be thinking Atletico, but it can't be. It could be Real Madrid. Is it Real Madrid?
It's not Real Madrid. No, it's Juventus. Juventus have lost 7 times in Champions League / European Cup finals.
Who's second?
That was a great question, Owen.
Second, I don't have it to hand. It might have been Real Madrid. I'm sure you can Google it.
Real was a good answer because they've been in the most finals.
That was the logic, but...
Yeah. Wow, Juve. What a bunch of losers.
Question. Yeah, really. Juve's record is terrible. Question 2 for you, Ger. Name the only European club other than Nottingham Forest that have a European Cup to their name but do not currently play top-tier football in their country.
Sorry, what's the start of the question?
Name the only European club. So top 5 leagues, top 5 countries. Name the only European club other than Nottingham Forest that have a European Cup to their name but don't currently play top-tier football.
In the top 5 countries. So
yeah,
it's okay. Torino.
It's hardly Hertha Berlin, is it?
No, but you're in the right country. Anyone?
Borussia Mönchengladbach.
Yeah, Mönchengladbach are sure they're playing.
No,
that was a joke.
It's Hamburg.
Hamburg, right? Okay.
They're top of the second tier in Germany at the moment.
They're good questions.
Thank you, Tommy.
Somebody sent them in.
Maybe. 10 English clubs have played in the Champions League, Tommy. The Champions League, not the European Cup, this is. Can you name them all? This is an easy question.
Manchester United and Manchester City, Spurs, Liverpool, Arsenal, Leeds, Newcastle, Chelsea. Do qualifiers count?
No.
Okay, so not. I'm saying not Everton. Have I got 9? Yeah.
You got 8.
Got 8.
I've got 8. Just Champions League.
TikTok.
So would Blackburn Rovers be in there?
TikTok. That's a question, Tommy.
Name 9 teams.
That's
my
a question.
final one will be. My final one is Newcastle Leeds. I've got an obvious one missing, haven't I? Spurs, Chelsea. Leicester City.
Boom. 10 out of 10.
Get in there, boys. 2-1.
Nearly ding, nearly down.
You got there in the end. Yeah, indeed. Ranieri's Leicester. Round 3 is
Great
the Pele
questions.
round. Thank you, Tommy. And congratulations on your 2 points so far. You're doing very well. Round 3 is the Pele round. I've seen the new Pele documentary, and because I'm too lazy to do any research for another round here, you're all getting questions on Pele. Good luck. Question 3 for you, Phil. Name the only club other than Santos that Pele played for.
They played New York Cosmos.
Oh, well.
Correct.
He only asked the question again. Well done, Phil. Well done.
You got there in the end. Hupia, Cosmos. That's the way you are assertive.
That's the way I like to kind of throw it out there as if the listeners are with me. So
yeah,
I'm always conferring with them, but we're going to give the answer anyway.
I bet that one.
Sure. Pele got kicked off the field at the 1966 World Cup as Brazil crashed out in the group stages. Name either of the teams that beat them.
Straight there.
Yeah. 58,
Silence.
62, 66. Any of the teams that beat them. Do I have 2 goals because 2 teams beat them?
No.
That's BS.
That's the rules.
No, you've just got an extra chance of getting your one answer correct.
Chile.
No, it's not Chile.
Italy.
Hungary or Portugal for your 2 options. Eusebio scored twice against Brazil. So not correct. Tommy, name any of Pele's teammates and escape to victory in real life, not called Michael Caine or Sylvester Stallone.
Do you know what it is, Tommy?
I do.
Have you seen the bloody movie?
I'm going to say a young Jason Statham.
What?
Oh, no, Vinnie Jones. Vinnie Jones.
What?
How was Jason Statham getting in the goal instead of Sly? The monk wasn't getting in instead of Sly.
I didn't know the answer, boys. Was Vinnie Jones right?
No. It's like Jason Statham was 14 when Escape to Victory came out.
I said a young Jason Statham. And listen, man, I haven't seen it. So.
John Wark?
Sure, you seem to know.
John Wark?
Yeah, John Wark would have worked.
Did Trevor Francis play?
No, not on that team anyway. I just looked at the starting 11. Paul Van Himst, Cole Preens, Bobby Moore, Ozzy Ardiles, Russell Osman, John Wark, Soren Lindstedt, and Mike Summerby.
Right.
His teammates, as well as Michael Caine and Sly Stallone, obviously.
Save the power, slide
it is. Great save, great stop. Round 4, and the scores are Tommy 2, Ger 1, Phil 2. So it's all to play for. This is the fun free magic number round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. I'm going to state that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper. I'm also going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of games lost by Liverpool so far in this season's Premier League, plus the number of men's football All-Irelands won by Dublin, plus the number of Australian Open titles won by Serena Williams, plus the number of regulation innings in a game of baseball. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads. So, how many games have Liverpool lost in the league this year? How many All-Irelands have Dublin won in men's football? How many Australian Open titles does Serena have? And how many innings in a game of baseball?
Bangles, hear how they jing-jing-a-ling-a. Bubbles, bangles,
bright, shiny beads.
Pens down. Tommy, what do you got?
I changed it to 62 at the last second.
62. Phil?
I went for 52.
45.
45. The answer is 52. Phil is bang on the money.
Oh.
3 points for Phil. What an answer. Take us through, Phil. How many games have Liverpool lost so far?
I had 6 down.
6 is correct.
5. Right.
How many All-Irelands have Dublin got?
I said 36.
30. Serena's got how many Aussie Opens?
7.
7. And how many innings in a game of baseball?
9.
That tots up to a grand total of 52. Phil,
that was the
brings
toughest part for me. It was actually adding it up.
Well done, you got it right.
So do I get a point for second?
No, because you got it bang on the money.
Oh.
There's only points for second if no one manages to get that exactly right.
Balls.
Phil, just
game over,
Phil. How this works. If you get the first one right here, you're gonna get it, no problem. You're gonna run through it. You're gonna get it all right. If you get the first one wrong, you're gonna lose a point, and I'm gonna win.
Well, no, because what would happen is you get one wrong, and if I get the first one wrong, it would probably mean I get another chance.
He always puts the easy question second.
Well, we'll see. Our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys, the Anthony Cunninghams from the Anthony DuPonts. It's a no theme in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round. The score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round. 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. We're going to start with Phil, then on to Tommy, then on to Ger. If you get a question correct, Ger, this has been a really bad defense of your title. I think you were champ last time, weren't you? If you get a question correct, I will ask you another question and keep asking you questions until you get one wrong. And once you get one wrong, I move on to the next person. And your incorrect answer also means the deduction of 1 point. Phil the Power Egan, are you ready?
Yeah.
Your 40 seconds starts now. Max Verstappen drives for which Formula 1 team?
Ferrari.
No, Red Bull. What age is Kylian Mbappe, Tommy?
22.
Correct. Who's got more Ireland caps, Paul O'Connell or John Hayes?
John Hayes.
No, O'Connell. Darrell Horgan plays for which club, Ger?
Preston.
No, Wickham. Name the world #1 women's tennis player in the world, Phil.
Ashley Barty.
Correct. What country does Cameron Redpath play for?
Scotland.
Oh.
Correct. When did Galway last win a football All-Ireland?
2001.
Correct. In what city did the 1996 Olympics take place?
Well done, Phil.
Atlanta,
correct. He ends up on 8 points. Tommy ends up on 2 points. Ger ends up on 0. Phil Egan, you were back and you were the champ.
Yeah, it was tactical, Tommy. Got the first one wrong on purpose.
I bottled it. I absolutely bottled it. Well done.
You really did. Phil, the floor is yours. Give us your victory speech.
That was the equivalent of taking the tactical yellow card for the team, where I just said, right, do you know what? Tommy was kind of right with what he was saying. It's very hard to go on a clean sweep.
Tommy is like Mead since 2000, all lip, all full of the big talk, but actually can't deliver on any of it. Good man, Tommy. Good man, Tommy. You're always giving out about people being a bad winner or a bad loser. Turns out you're just a loser. Well done.
Don't forget 2001 All-Ireland semi-final against Kerry. 2-14 to, what was it, 5 points?
Come on, play the music. Let's get out of here. This is embarrassing now.
You go on a win with that, Tommy, surely.
Amazingly, Phil's win has just transformed into Tommy and Ger bickering. Congratulations, Phil. This is all about you. We'll be back next week. Tommy's wagging finger will be back next week as well. This is a crappy quiz.
Love Phil.
Chris on.
Oh, you're kidding me. September. Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
No! Is that right?
I know! It's not right!
Anybody else? Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz. What is going on here?
Another vintage edition, I think you'll agree, of the crappy quiz for 2021. And Phil Egan, as inevitable as night follows day, is crowned champion when all is said and done. Right, we are, it's 9:30, you're watching OTB AM, and I'm delighted to say that the Mayo legend joins AFLW footballer Cora Staunton, joins us on the line. Morning to you, or good evening to you, Cora.
Good evening, boys. How are you?
Good. 8:30, is that about right in the evening?
Yeah, just 8:30. Yeah, just back in the door from training in about 20 minutes. So yeah, a nice warm evening, 27, 28 degrees in Sydney. So yeah, tough training session.
Oh, listen, you need to be rubbing our noses in it. And I've just had a very quick Google of Sydney coronavirus, and things seem to be going okay.
Yeah, Sydney's actually good. I don't think they've had a case in over, I think they're up in about 3 weeks now. There's been a couple of cases in Victoria, but yeah, I think 1 or 2 cases here. They close a lot of the borders, but yeah, there's very little coronavirus here. I think in the whole of the country today, I think there was 3 cases. So nothing compared to at home. So yeah, lucky enough, life is pretty normal over here.
And does that mean you can go about your day and your training and your interactions pretty much as normal, or are there still things to watch out for?
Nah, bar just a couple of things we have to fill in every day about COVID. Everything else is pretty normal. Yeah, coffee shops, restaurants, pubs. Yeah, everything is normal. You only wear a mask if you're in a medical centre. Everywhere else, it's like there's no COVID at all, really, bar 1 or 2 things.
That's amazing. So you don't have to get tested or anything like that for training or for games?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we get tested twice weekly within the club. But do you know what? It's become routine now. I'd say at this stage I'm well over 25 plus tests. So yeah, routinely we get probably tested twice weekly. Normally it starts the week, but normally Monday and Friday is what we get tested.
Right. Well, between the weather now and the state of play in society generally, we're green with envy here. What's training like at the minute at the Giants? It's not been maybe the most ideal start to the season. 1 from 3.
Yeah, 1 from 3. Obviously, it's probably well documented. We've had probably a rough journey within pre-seasons this year. Personally, from obviously myself from Breed. And the Irish girls getting over late, and then obviously quarantining and getting out on Christmas Day. And from there, it's been a whirlwind really with the Giants. I didn't get to Sydney till 2 weeks ago. So I was just over 8 weeks on the road between hubbing with the Giants and hotel quarantining and stuff. So yeah, I think we're a lot more settled since we got back into Sydney. And yeah, so the win at the weekend was good. And yeah, we've West Coast Eagles on Sunday. So yeah, we'll be looking for another win.
And like looking at just doing a bit of digging around and looking at some of the highlights and some of the reports last night, and like scores have been hard to come by, and I wondered how much of that then falls back on your door, or like in terms of your own role in that and the team's role in trying to eke out more scores. Like, are they active conversations that you're having on a day like today, or how does all that play out for you personally?
Yeah. Of course, it falls on our forward line, and probably a bit falls on our ball movement with our midfield as well. So. Yeah, we wouldn't be too worried about last weekend because we played in torrential rain. So that's probably not the biggest worry. You're never going to kick a lot of scores in rain. Yeah, the 2 weekends previous, we've come up against probably the best team in the competition the week before in Adelaide. So, yeah, there's certainly conversations. We want to kick more goals, and that's where the enjoyment is in the game. So, yeah, we'll be looking to do that at the weekend. All but I think we're promised thunderstorms tomorrow night. So and a little bit of rain on Sunday. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, certainly, the biggest thing is obviously to win games, and the more goals you kick, the more chance that you have to win the games.
Yeah, and is that a case of you then, in terms of the midfield? Listen, get it into me, don't delay, pump it in. How are those conversations going?
Yeah, I suppose it's a little bit different to Gaelic football. Obviously, 7 or 8 goals in a game is a big total. So if you're kicking, 5, 6 plus, you're probably going to win a game. So it's a little bit of that. Your role isn't just solely, scoring like it would be in Gaelic football. If you kick 2 goals in a game, it's quite good. You have a lot of other roles within the forward line, whether it's, tackle pressure, leading, just different stuff, blocks, a lot of stuff like that. So, just solely, it doesn't fall on maybe one individual, it falls on the whole forward line. And probably from our wingers and midfields, that the ball is coming in a little bit quicker, and the ball isn't, probably like it has been for us, a little slower coming in. But that's, pressure around the contest and around the midfield. So they're doing their best. But yeah, and certainly a thing we've been working on in training, certainly this week.
Do you have personal scoring targets, Cora?
No, we wouldn't have scoring targets. We'd look at certain things like stats like score involvements rather than scoring targets. So that'd be probably a big one for the forwards. Metres gained would be probably another one that we would take pride in. So you're looking to be probably up on 300 or 400 metres gained per game as a forward, certainly in my role. So they're kind of stats that you look at. Tackles would be a group goal. So we have line groups. Our forward line group would be certainly tackles, and how many tackles we can get inside 50, inside our forward 50, and certainly how many marks we can have inside forward 50. We would have key performance indicators. Obviously goals is one of them, but probably shot efficiency rather than actual goals would be our key performance indicators.
When you talk about metres gained, is that kick passing, is that running with the ball, is it all encompassing?
It's all encompassing. So that's, right. Yeah, if you get the ball and put it on the boot and you can kick it 50 metres, and that's obviously 50 metres gained, but it has to be effective. It can't be 50 metres and I kick it to the opposition, then that's not counted. So yeah, it's a very stats-based game. And I even talking to Breed, it's a lot different to Gaelic football, and probably the stats have to marry up. You marry up your stats with your GPS. You just don't solely focus on stats. So, for example, as a forward with the GPS, a lot of the for me would be sprint meters, sprint efforts, that type of thing. The GPS covers about 12 different things.
Do you enjoy that? Do you like the fact that there is a spreadsheet with all your data from a specific game or a training session available to you?
Yeah, you do. I think the biggest thing is that you have all that data, but you also have, whether it's a training session or a match, you have, every training session is videoed. So you can look at the video, you can look at the stats and see where you're going well or where you're not going well, and things to improve on. So, there's advantages and disadvantages to stats. A lot of the unseen work, we'd have girls in the team that, play a real unselfish role and have to do things that maybe they don't get stats for, but we know they're playing a really important role. It's same as in Gaelic football. It might be like your wing forward that they run up and down the pitch and mightn't get many touches, but they're playing a really important role. Or it could be something like a sweeper. So obviously the people around the ball are the midfielders would be the ones getting the high possessions, the backs and the forwards probably. If we get 10 to 12 possessions in a game, that's big where midfielders are racking up 20 plus possessions in a game.
The article that I read last night, Cora, previewing the game, the Eagles on Sunday that you mentioned a bit earlier on there, was tipping the Giants to win by 14. No pressure.
Yeah. No pressure. Yeah, I suppose, we played the Eagles last year and we bet them well. The Eagles have had a very hard start to the season. I suppose they've played probably 3 of the top teams in Brisbane, Adelaide and Fremantle. Adelaide and Fremantle has certainly been the 2 favourites for the competition. So they've had a hard start. They're a very young, exciting team. They're very physical. They play a very contested game. So in that regards, when I say contested game, they like to get in and hit hard. So yeah, there'll be a lot of pressure on our midfield. That's probably where the ball is going, or the game is going to be won and lost, because the ball is around the midfield a lot. So yeah, it's tough. We're at home. That's, you know, another big advantage. They're flying over from Perth tomorrow. So obviously that's Sydney to Perth is a 4.5 hour flight. So, you know, you take all that into account. And yeah, you could see why we're favourites.
Yeah, and Ashley McCarthy lighting it up for them as well. So I'm sure you'll be having a chat with her as well on Sunday.
Yeah, so
go on, yeah.
Surely. Yeah, no, Ashley's doing well, and obviously the two Mayo girls, Niamh Kelly and Grace Kelly, obviously play with the Eagles as well. Niamh is out injured at the moment, you know, so Grace has been playing with the Eagles as well, so she'll be one certainly our back line have to watch.
The Irish players looking out for each other has obviously been a feature over the last couple of years and a feature again this year. And you mentioned Breed a bit earlier on and the tough time that she's had with injury, and she's written brilliantly about it. If people haven't seen her pieces in the Irish Examiner over the last few weeks, I highly recommend to go and check them out, because she's been really honest and forthright about what she's been going through. I remember you speaking last year, Cora, about you used the comments from a coach that had doubted your powers of recovery, or at least, as you said yourself, you were twisting them that way to suit your own purpose, to give you a bit of motivation almost about it, and all that you went through with that. You're very well equipped with the tools, having been through all that, to help guide Breed through almost.
Yeah, surely. You know, as I said to her, you know, a lot of these major injuries, yeah, they're a physical battle, surely, but the biggest side of it is it's very tough mentally. Breed has been probably through a huge emotional roller coaster since she arrived. You know, obviously starting with hotel quarantine and then having to hub, and then obviously her injury, the tribunal, and the way that went. And then she's had appointments with, you know, different consultants and doctors where, you know, the news might be good one day and 2 days later it mightn't be so good. So I suppose that's been a huge struggle for her. But she's been very positive through it all and has been very good among the group and sharing her experiences. Obviously, she's come from a team in Cork that have won so much. So she's imparted a lot of knowledge to the group and especially to the younger girls in the group. And again, I suppose they think it's a feature of the Irish at this stage, because obviously me and my recovery and the way Breed is attacking her recovery now, you know, and trying to get back for the back end of the season. You know, they think in some ways that we're a little bit crazy, and you know, that if that was their case, they'd probably just say they'd wipe the season, or in some cases wipe their careers and say, you know, we're never going to get back. So yeah, I think it's good for the girls in our club to see that how mentally strong that, you know, I was, and certainly how Breed is now at this moment in time.
Yeah, you were in close quarters when the tackle happened, and you mentioned the tribunal there, and she was particularly annoyed, I think, to put it mildly, with how that played out. What was your own take on the nature of the challenge and the aftermath in terms of the ban and it being overturned?
Yeah, I suppose the nature of the challenge, yeah, while I was near it, I didn't, you know, see it, you know, in real time. I probably was, you know, I remember coming for the ball. I was probably trying to make a run. She wasn't too far away from me. I suppose the vibe, the memory that I have from that time was the screams that she let out, obviously when she got tackled, because it straight away brought me back to when I broke my leg, and the exact same screams. You know, I think when people go down injured, you know whether it's serious or not, and I knew straight away it was serious, because, as I said, I think it's the adrenaline in your body that does it to you, that you let out these screams. You don't know why you're letting them out, whether, you know, to her it wasn't even pain. I think it's this shock that goes through your body. And I knew straight away she let out two of them and started, you know, I was straight over to her. And first of all, I actually thought it was her arm, because she was holding her arm, that she had broke her arm, and her arm was very floppy. But I could see there was nothing really wrong with it. And then she started to complain of a pain in her head and her neck. And then I knew straight away this was, you know, really, really serious. And I suppose that played out. Obviously, she was taken to hospital and, you know, on the pitch for probably about, you know, 35, 40 minutes. And the news went from, you know, pretty bad for the first while. I went back to the hotel to pick up her child. He was a bit with a babysitter, and the news then wasn't good for a while. And eventually I got into the Royal Hospital in Adelaide to see her, and surgery was mentioned, and, you know, a lot of nerve damage, but then the news, you know, came a little bit better. So it was a roller coaster. And then obviously the tribunal, that was really disappointing, you know, for Marinoff to get, you know, 3 games and then to be quashed, you know, that was hard for Breed to take. And I suppose the social media angle went from, you know, Breed being the victim to Breed being the villain. I know she certainly took that took a lot out of her. And I suppose, the club have been great and the people supporting her around it. And I think, the main thing now, she has moved on from it all, and, it is what it is back then. But yeah, she certainly went through probably 3 to 4 weeks of a real mental roller coaster.
The social media aspect doesn't help, Cora. Like the comments about the people putting the blame almost at her door was almost a team on social media, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. And I suppose the most disappointing thing, when it was a practice match, if it's not a practice match, the practice matches are live on television over here. If it was on television, you have a number of different camera angles that you can work off. As a practice match, it was, there was one camera angle, I think maybe two, and people didn't see, it wasn't a great view that they could see. And then the trial by social media, it was terrible. As we know, social media can have huge benefits, but it can have huge negative things as well. So I felt really sorry for her, because what people didn't see, that was probably, I think there was 30 seconds, maybe to a minute left in the game. Breed was probably was one of our best players, if not our best player on the pitch that day. She was having a stormer. She was in a number of tackles before that, so it wasn't anything like it was her first tackle in AFL. She had played out 70, 80 minutes, and she was definitely our best on ground. And that was the most disappointing thing. That was never said in the media. Nothing else. She was involved in probably 7, 10 tackles well before that. So that's the disappointing thing. And the team that they went around, that, she's a rookie, and she was 34 and she was new to the game and she didn't know what she was doing. She'd trained for 6 or 7 weeks previous to that game and had been involved in a load of contact. So that was really disappointing, and I know that really upset her.
Cora, a conversation about, we mentioned coronavirus at the top, but the conversation certainly around mental health in this country over the last 12 months feels like it's moved on decades in terms of people's sort of capacity for openness about actually how they're feeling. The I'm grand stuff seems to be certainly not a thing of the past, but it certainly seems that anecdotally and otherwise that people are a bit more open to having conversations on mental health. And we haven't had a chance to talk to you since and condolences, the sad passing of your teammate Jacinda Barkley last year. I'd read a piece by Rebecca Beeson, also one of your colleagues at the Giants, in The Guardian at the back end of last year, and it really stayed with me, I have to say, for days afterwards. It was a powerful piece, and again, highly recommend to go and check it out. But as I said, we haven't had a chance to talk to you, and I wondered, as a squad, how do you even begin to come to terms with something of that magnitude? Yeah, it's been very difficult. People didn't know Cinda. She was certainly one in a lifetime individual. She was very different. I always remember my first day coming into the Giants. Walking into the dressing room very shy, and she was one of the first people over to me, and she was certainly she was different, and she had a different way about life, but she was very upbeat and probably looked after the people that needed looking after in a team that maybe that were a bit shyer and needed a little bit of support to get words out and a little bit of support socially. She was very good. I suppose as a group it was very difficult at the time. Because we're a team where we have a lot of girls that are interstate, and obviously we have girls overseas. So, there was 2 of us in Ireland. We had a lot of girls in Melbourne. So we didn't really ever get a chance to fully grieve as a team. And obviously restrictions with COVID over here as well at the time. None of the girls, because the funeral was in Perth and they were all Sydney or Melbourne based. None of them obviously could go to the funeral because all the borders were closed. So, it's probably been difficult as a group. The first time we got together as a full group, because we had a couple of girls that couldn't come to Hub with us when we went to regional New South Wales, because one was training to be a firefighter and one of the other girls is in the army, so they just couldn't get off work. So it's only 2 weeks ago was the first time as a full group, staff and teammates, that we've all been together. So we've had little tributes over the last kind of number of months. Certainly in the first round when we played in Perth, because that's where Cinda's from. Obviously, we had a minute silence. We've her number is on all our jerseys and our polos and stuff like that. So her memory is certainly around the club. Her locker is still there. There's pictures of her everywhere, and we speak about her regularly.
and I suppose, as it's well documented, she's gone through quite a tough mental health battle, but she was massively supported by our coach, Alan, and he done massive work for her, as did our team psychologist and welfare people. But, they did the best they could. But, in the end, it was a choice that Cinda made. And it's very difficult, but it's a thing that we're working through certainly together.
Yeah, it leaves so many questions in its wake, far more than answers, and I can only imagine how difficult it is to have gone through that. And I know a big theme of the piece as well, Cora, was in relation to the fact that she would have had to scrimp and save. As somebody of her prowess, and for people who haven't read it, she was multi-talented across a whole load of different sports, represented Australia internationally and played in the US in different sports and that as well, but struggled to make ends meet. And what's your take? Because I know we had, coincidentally, Louise Quinn was on with Nathan last night, and he was talking again about, they were talking again about the issue of equal pay here, and it was discussed. It came up at Dáil level, actually, a few months back, where the quasi-Minister for Sport, Jack Chambers, at the time said that he was going to march out to the FAI to demand equity. A different dynamic, obviously, for Gaelic sports, but that point about the expenses, particularly in relation to the women's game and the men's game here, and obviously moves recently with the GPA and the WGPA combining. I don't know how much of that you followed or what your opinions on that would be, but what's your sense here of, and by all means, add in your experience in Australia, of that shift to some sort of pay equity to make it possible for elite female athletes to be able to focus on sport?
Yeah, I think obviously, I speak from GAA first, again, yeah, it's getting better, but in my opinion, it's not getting better fast enough. It's too slow. I remember sitting talking about this maybe 10 years ago, and it's been done very ad hoc. There's some county teams that are being looked after okay. There's some county teams being looked after quite well, and there's some county teams that aren't being looked after at all. So that's the biggest disappointing thing, that, all county teams, whether you're from Mayo or you're from Dublin or you're from Limerick or you're from Tipperary, wherever you're from, if you're an senior inter-county player, you should all be receiving the same. And I know for a fact there's girls within county teams are receiving expenses, and there's girls that's not. And, it's minimal. I think this year they received expensive because of COVID and having to travel on your own. But yeah, my experience, I'm retired out of county football, 2 or 3 years now. And in my time, 24 years playing for Mayo, I never received an expense. I never got petrol or diesel money. We were very lucky. Maybe in the last few years, we might have got meals after training, not all the time. And you're certainly massively out of pocket. And I think that's, it's disappointing, because you look at your male counterparts. The biggest example I can give is the Mayo men, how well looked after their expenses and being fed and, different things like that. Yeah, and it's moving on. The WGPA and the GPA has certainly come together, is another huge improvement. But I really don't think all of this is going to fully get better, or we're going to have more equality until all the organisations, that the GAA Ladies Football and the Camogie Association are all as one. Until that day happens, we're still going to be seen as separate bodies, and that once we're under one unit, then there's more chance that ladies footballers and camogie players will be treated the same as men's, whether that's in facilities, whether that's in expenses, whatever it is. Until that day happens, we're still going to be talking about this issue, like we were last year talking about the Galway Cork ladies match that was moved to Croke Park at last minute from Parnell Park. Every year we're talking about one or two things, and until the organisations come together, and then we can strive for equality, I think we're still going to be talking about this in 5 years' time.
Yeah, well, actually, it was just that you mentioned it. I was listening to an interview yesterday with John Walters, the former Ireland footballer who's gone for the CEO of the PFA in England, which is a big job. And he was talking about that exact point, about how, those who have need to help out those who have not. What's your sense of, a willingness on all parts to, the merging of them at that top level would seem like a fairly easy fix, but your sense of the appetite maybe at elite level from what you've seen over the years to make that kind of a move?
Yeah, I think it's there. I sense, from the GAA that they want this to be done. They want, they've gone for the one club model. So I sense it's there. Whether I'm not sure. I think the biggest question that needs to be asked is why it hasn't happened. Why hasn't the Ladies Association and Camogie Association gone in under? Because I wrote about it in my book a few years ago. I remember sitting in a taxi with Nicky Brennan, back in somewhere in China at a GAA games, and him asking me the questions. He was very keen to get all the three associations together, and he was asking me, do I know why it's not happening? I certainly didn't, but I think the question needs to be put out there, why hasn't it happened? And if it hasn't happened, when is it going to be happening? I think a date needs to be set that by 2022 that the organisations will become one, and it won't be that we'll be talking about ladies football or camogie or men's football. We'll be all under the one umbrella, and I think the games will grow. I think ladies football, while it's grown very fast now in camogie, I think they'll even excel even more, and I think that's the questions that need to be asked. And whether that's politically pressure needs to be put on, or pressure needs to be put on at the top levels, it needs to be done by someone. But at the moment, I think everyone is kind of saying we're doing something, but there's no definite outcome.
Yeah, and at the minute, at a governmental level, sound bites seem to be the currency of the day, and sending out a press release about every positive thing that happens in Irish sport seems to take up their time rather than actually getting into the nitty-gritty of the matters that count. Yeah,
certainly. I think it's a matter of doing it, and I think a date needs to be set. As I said, we're talking about this for years. As I said, I think it was, I'm not even sure, maybe that was 2014, or I'm not sure when Nicky Brennan was president, but back then, that's 6-7 years ago now. We can't afford to have that for another 6 or 7 years. We need to start moving on these things and not be talking about them. It comes to a stage that it's not right for females. And I go back to Cork, and that's the Cork and Galway and their move of pitch to Croke Park that time. The way that was dealt with, and they should be grateful that they get the opportunity to play in Croke Park at last minute. That, to me, that's something that's 10 or 15 years ago that we were dealing with that stuff. We shouldn't be dealing with it now. These are elite female athletes. They're given as much time as their male counterparts, and they should be treated accordingly as their male counterparts are.
Yeah, I better ask you, because Michael Moyles, who's the new Mayo manager, has been out in the press over the last little while, and he said there's a clean slate.
There's a clean slate, yeah. I think you missed something about, was it 2018 that I retired from playing GAA, playing with Mayo. So there's a clean slate. It's great to see Michael back involved. He was involved, I think, with Mayo football with us in 2015. So he was a super coach then when he was involved. He's involved in a training capacity. So it's great to see that he's taken up the mantle, and he's assembled a really good backroom team with them. So I've seen Fiona McHale and them have said they're looking forward to going back. So I obviously wish them the best of luck, and I hope the best players in Mayo will play with Mayo, and can only wish them the best of luck. But my days with Mayo are certainly done. I think 24 seasons was far too long.
I think most Mayo fans would disagree with that, but we take you on your word, Cora. I don't want to be reading in the papers now in a couple of weeks that Cora Staunton said a call from Michael Moyles, and she's done a U-turn here. What's the future with the AFLW? Because you're no longer. We were talking about Breed and the rookie comments that were made. You're there and you're embedded now for the last while. What's the plan for you then going forward with the AFLW?
Yeah, that's another good question. At my age, I suppose you just have to take it year by year. I'm probably waiting for the club to say, enough is enough now and get rid of me, but they haven't said that yet. Now I'll just, I'll take the season and I'll sit down at the end of the season. At this stage, to me, every season's a bonus. I have, obviously a great rapport with our coach out here, and, I love the club and I love the opportunity to try and push myself and challenge myself. So, I'll sit down with Al again sometime in probably April or May and see where I'm at, see where the body is at. The good thing for me is I'm really enjoying it, and my body is actually in good condition. Even better than this time last year when I was trying to come back from a leg. So as I said, reassess. At my age, that's the only thing you can do. I've probably been taking it year by year for probably the last 8 or 9 years, so it's stood me in good stead, so I'll keep going that way.
Yeah, what's one more year? Cora, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you. Best of luck on Sunday, and we'll catch up with you again soon down the track.
Lovely, lads. Thanks a million. Talk to you soon.
Thanks a million. Thanks a lot, Cora Staunton on the line there from Sydney, talking to all things FLW and GAA and plenty more besides as well. Right, it's almost 10 o'clock on this Friday morning. Thanks very much for joining us. It was a specially extended show for you here, and we're live weekday mornings, as you know by now, with thanks to Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. If you missed anything this morning, you can get the next. You'll get it next on OTB Sports Radio. Packed schedule of sports right across today. You can catch it all back on the OTB AM podcast as well, wherever it is you get your streams, and our 40-minute chat with James McClean as well, our interview, one of the highlights from the week. You can check that out up there as well. But from us for this morning, good morning.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and